Chapter 719. Cheng Yanluo leaned against the carriage and yawned. When Chu Qingyan appeared at the entrance of the bank, she couldn't help but narrow her eyes. Did something good happen to you? Look at you, flushed with success. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan immediately retracted the expression on her face. Unfortunately, the redness on her face was still very obvious even in the morning sun. She laughed and said, "It's nothing. Let's go." Cheng Yanluo stared at her in disbelief before finally letting her go and getting into the carriage. Chu Qingyan finally heaved a sigh of relief. She recalled that before she left the courtyard, a certain someone had pinned her behind the door. He had said that he wanted a reward for helping her, and then he had done this and that. When she left, her legs had turned to jelly. She shook her head to clear her mind of the charming and gentle look from just now and hopped into the carriage. Today, she was going to discuss the product launch with Hua Xiu. As soon as Chu Qingyan sat down, she heard Cheng Yanluo's question. "I heard that the fourth prince is leading the troops this time. Aren't you worried?" Chu Qingyan didn't understand. Worried about what? If the fourth prince wins, he'll be one step closer to the throne. When that happens, won't your wife be in trouble? Cheng Yanluo hit the nail on the head. I've already thought of this problem. Chu Qingyan rested her hands on her knees and looked a little disappointed. If Xiao Ran loses, Empress Liang and the imperial court won't let Big Ice Cube off. He's made outstanding military achievements in the past, and they'll want him to return. But, it's just a relationship between using and being used. It's annoying. I mourn for you. Cheng Yanluo leaned against the wall of the carriage and shrugged. Let's take one step at a time. In this world, if we keep worrying about things, we'll only live more and more sadly. It's better to enjoy life while it lasts. Chu Qingyan smiled brightly, as if the desolate look just now was just an illusion. Cheng Yanluo glanced at her. Actually, I've been wondering for the past 2 days. You're not showing off in Jiangnan just for yourself, right? Smart. Chu Qingyan replied with a smile. Cheng Yanluo reached out to pinch her nose and smiled shrewdly. It's not a bad idea to start a career first before starting a family. When the time comes, I'll definitely ask for a toast. But let me say this first, I won't be paying any money. You can't skimp on the money. How stingy. Chu Qingyan only reacted when she saw Cheng Yanluo's teasing expression. Who's getting married? What nonsense are you talking about? Cheng Yanluo burst into laughter. The two of them laughed and joked until they reached the place where Huaxiu Rio was. Wine and Color Tea House. When Chu Qingyan got off the carriage, she looked up at the tea house. What Big Ice Cube said in the morning rang in her ears. She felt that it was very reasonable. It was indeed inconvenient to discuss things outside, and walls had ears. After all, the business world was like a battlefield. When they entered the private room, Hua Xiuli had not arrived yet. Chu Qingyan patted her head. Oh, I forgot to call Dong Ting. Is Dong Ting the man who looked more outstanding than a girl yesterday? Cheng Yanluo looked around the private room and heard her exclamation. She turned around and asked. Yes, you mistook him for a girl. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. Is he also involved in your business? No, he's not. It's just that he's helped me a lot recently, so I'm used to calling him. Chu Qingyan explained. Cheng Yanluo heard this and said with a faint smile, since he's not involved, why is he helping you so much? Has he taken a liking to you? Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at her. How could that be? We're just friends. Don't get the wrong idea. Put away your wild thoughts. Cheng Yanluo shook her head. I don't believe it. I remember Huling once mentioned this person's name. He seems to have been your enemy. Although you've turned weapons of war into gifts of jade and silk, don't forget that you're a woman with a man. Chu Qingyan choked on her own saliva. What did she mean by she was a woman with a man? Why did it sound so strange? At this moment, the door was pushed open from the outside, followed by a clear and melodious voice. "Sorry, I'm late." It was Hua Xiaoli, who was dressed in a handsome man's suit. "It's fine. We just arrived." Chu Qingyan got up and greeted her, but saw that she looked tired. "What happened? Why do you look so tired?" Hua Xiaoli raised her hand to touch her face and sighed. "Don't mention it. It's all because of that good-for-nothing cousin of mine. He's always stirring up trouble. Yesterday, he even beat up a young master. I had to make several trips to pull strings. I was tired out all night. It's simply torture." Chu Qingyan didn't want to interfere with other people's family matters. However, she still said, "If it's very troublesome, tell me and I'll see if I can help." She didn't forget that Big Ice Cube's good friend Lin Fengyi was Jiangnan's highest official. Hua Xiaoli could be considered her friend. If she really needed help, she could thicken her skin and beg Big Ice Cube. Hua Xiaoli thought she was being polite. "You just arrived in Jiangnan not long ago. How could you know anyone? Moreover, my cousin offended someone with a big background." "Forget it, don't interfere. If there's really no other way, I'll go beg that miser. Now, let me have breakfast first. I'm starving. Let's talk business while we eat." After saying that, Hua Xiaoli ordered the waiter to prepare tea and snacks. Chu Qingyan didn't say anything else. Why did that miser sound so familiar? Cheng Yanluo was a straightforward woman. Hua Xiaoli often dressed in men's clothes when she went around. Her style of doing things was also straightforward. Therefore, the two of them chatted happily after meeting each other twice. Hua Xiaoli didn't expect Chu Qingyan to have a ready-made batch of goods. She was so happy that she didn't even have time to eat breakfast. "So, we can put the products on the shelves in 2 days?" Hua Xiaoli rubbed her hands together, looking like she was ready to go all out. Chu Qingyan was amused. "Don't be in such a hurry. Let's do enough publicity and make a good opening." "Oh, do you have any ideas?" Hua Xiaoli had seen Chu Qingyan's outstanding intelligence and unique style of doing things before, so she looked forward to her ideas with a smile. Chu Qingyan didn't refuse. She took a sip of tea to moisten her throat. After putting down the cup, she slowly explained the few points she had figured out last night. "First of all, we have a very big problem. The products are very novel and have never been seen on the market. Very few people have a novelty mentality. Most people want to be safe. So I'm afraid that once we go on the market, no one will dare to try it even if the effects are good. Secondly, our products need to have a positioning, which is the main consumer. This way, it's convenient for us to control the price and cast a wide net. This method is not good. We need a clear target audience. Lastly, our products can't be put together with conventional rouge and face powder. We need to create an independent brand." Chapter 720. Lin Fu. In the lavender garden, in the octagonal pavilion, two equally outstanding men were playing chess. "I haven't seen you for a few days. You seem to be in a good mood." Lin Fengyi had changed out of his usual official robes and was wearing a white robe that made him look handsome. He spun the black chess piece in his hand, and his white skin was dark and shiny. The two extremes made people feel as though they were on opposite ends of the spectrum. At this time, there was a smile at the corner of his mouth, and his tone was slightly teasing. Xiao Su was in a good mood because of this morning's extra meal. Even though he heard his good friend's vague inquiry, he didn't take it to heart. He picked up a white chess piece, and the black sleeves on his wrists drooped down, adding to his cold and stern temperament. However, the white chess piece on his fingertips shone brightly, reflecting the sunlight. From afar, his fingers appeared white and translucent. Just his hands alone were enough to make women who were obsessed with their hands scream. N. He did not deny it and admitted it. Lin Fengyi couldn't help but smile. He spun the black chess piece in his hand. When it finally landed, He raised a brow and asked curiously, "Has the matter that troubled you been resolved?" "What do you want to know?" Xiao Su placed a chess piece and asked in return. Since his good friend had spoken, wouldn't it be a pity if he let go of this opportunity? Therefore, Lin Fengyi took back his hand and crossed his arms. There was a clear smile in his eyes. "Have you and your little princess consort revealed everything? It's a loss for you not to be my strategist." Xiao Su did not admit or deny it, but this sentence was enough. Lin Fengyi's lips curved. He changed into a comfortable position and leaned against the back of the chair. "My ambition is to uphold justice for the common people. If I follow you, I will be buried by your enemies. I am still young and do not want to make life difficult for myself." Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and glanced at him. "You make it sound like you're really a clean official." "I have no choice. My father's orders are difficult, and the ancestral teachings are there. I can only follow them." Lin Fengyi smiled, his tone casual. Xiao Su did not comment. The topic came back again. "Speaking of which, I helped you solve such a big problem. Don't I get any benefits?" Lin Fengyi threw down a chess piece. He was no longer as impartial as he was in front of the officials. His expression was relaxed and lazy. When Lin Fengyi said this, Xiao Su had already taken a large number of his chess pieces. Xiao Su said without hesitation, "I'll give you a 10-piece handicap." "Ha!" Lin Fengyi couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. "You want to send me away with such a big favor? His Royal Highness can't be so stingy." Xiao Su put down the chess piece, but did not reply immediately, because he knew that his friend must have something else waiting for him. "If I hadn't enlightened you, perhaps you would still be conflicted." Lin Fengyi looked at him with a smile. Needless to say, if he didn't solve this problem, he probably wouldn't be in such a good mood now. "Since I helped you solve a problem, why don't you help me solve one too? It's rare to hear you speak." Xiao Su was a little surprised. "If this matter could be solved on the surface, I wouldn't need to ask you for help." Lin Fengyi shook his head, then continued, "Lu Ming, you should know that imperial concubine Lu's father has an idle position in Jiangnan. He can be considered normal, but his son, Lu Fuyu, seems to be involved in the smuggling of official salt. However, my subordinates are limited, so I can't investigate beyond Jiangnan." "Smuggling of official salt?" Xiao Su frowned. "He's quite daring. Other than Lu Ming, no one in the Lu family is easy to deal with." Lin Fengyi picked up the tea beside him and took a sip before saying this. After hearing this, Xiao Su suddenly relaxed his brows and looked at his good friend with a faint smile. "Everyone outside says that you're upright and plain-spoken. You didn't hesitate to drag your friend into this mess. If we investigate further, I'm afraid that a lot of people will be dragged into this mess. I can't handle such a big piece of meat alone. Also, don't forget that I'm working for the Xiao family." Lin Fengyi didn't care that his intentions were exposed at all. Instead, he openly countered him. "Okay, I'll agree to this." This good friend of his usually appeared honest and just, not revealing his true nature for many years. Xiao Su was almost confused by his behavior, so much so that he forgot how he had slyly avoided his imperial father's orders, as well as the favor of marquises and marquises to leave the capital and come to Jiangnan. Furthermore, he had just taken over Jiangnan's political affairs not long ago. Although he had made many achievements, his foundation was still shallow. Jiangnan was a fertile piece of meat, and there were many people in the capital who had their eyes on this place. Many powers had placed people here to fish for profits. Even if Lin Fengyi wanted to move, he couldn't shake these big trees, so he came to ask for help. In any case, the little fellow was doing business in Jiangnan and would have to deal with the government. Xiao Su thought that if he helped her establish this relationship in advance, it would be easier for her in the future. Seeing that Xiao Su had agreed, the two of them skipped the matter. "When I came just now, I saw that you were frowning. It shouldn't be because of the Lu family, right?" Although it was a question, Xiao Su's tone was firm. Lin Fengyi was slightly surprised. As expected, Nothing can be hidden from your eyes. That's because you're not the kind of person who would bring business into your daily life. Tell me, what's the problem? Xiao Su glanced at the chessboard, put down a chess piece, and waited for his answer. Lin Fengyi hesitated for a moment, which was rare. Xiao Su didn't rush him and waited quietly. Have you met anyone difficult to deal with? Sometimes, I want to avoid them, but they're always swaggering in front of you. Lin Fengyi considered his words before speaking faintly. Xiao Su looked at him strangely. I never give people I don't want to see a chance. So what you encountered will not happen to me. Lin Fengyi nodded. Indeed, when you're ruthless, no one dares to touch your reverse scale. No wonder there were rumors all these years that you don't get close to women. There was a period of time when even Ling Feng didn't dare to be alone with you. When he heard this, Xiao Su's expression turned ugly. At that time, I should have thrown the two of you out so that you wouldn't be an eyesore. Lin Fengyi was amused. Then I have to thank your highness for not throwing us out back then. Xiao Su didn't banter with him and asked directly, do you need me to help you get rid of that troublesome person? No need. Although she's a headache, it's not to the extent that I'm helpless. Lin Fengyi waved his hand. If Xiao Su personally dealt with that girl, even 9 lives wouldn't be enough. It was better for him to deal with her himself. Hua Xiu, who was discussing something with Chu Qingyan, suddenly sneezed. Chu Qingyan asked worriedly, did you catch a cold? Let Yan Luo take a look at you. Hua Xiu wiped her nose and waved her hand. No need. I'm in good health. It's probably some blind person talking behind my back. I'll just stab a few people when I get back. Chu Qingyan and Qing Yanluo looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. This little girl's words were quite interesting. Chapter 721. Chu Qingyan, Hua Xiuli, and Qing Yanluo were still sitting around a table in the private room, discussing their plans. However, it was basically Chu Qingyan talking while the other two listened. I have a preliminary plan for the problems I raised just now. Listen to it and see if it's feasible. Hua Xiuli and Qing Yanluo nodded at the same time. The problems Chu Qingyan raised just now were enough to surprise them. Now, they were looking forward to the shock she would bring. Hua Xiuli was especially excited. Although she was young, she had been in business for many years. The business world was like a battlefield. After so many years, she had experienced most of the tactics. Suddenly, there was a new and unpredictable blood flowing into Jiangnan. She could no longer hold back the boiling blood in her body. She knew that Hibiscus Pavilion's efforts to turn the tide were not Chu Qingyan's true strength. Next, perhaps this strange woman who appeared out of nowhere would cause waves in Jiangnan. This was the beginning of a new chapter in Jiangnan's business strategy. Chu Qingyan did not notice that in just a few days, she had become Hua Xiuli's idol. At this time, she was serious and modest. Skincare products are different from other products. You can't eat carelessly or use carelessly. Many people are wary of new things. They need to observe and confirm that there is no danger before they can rest assured. First, we need to gain the approval of the public. Therefore, I suggest that we select a group of people to try it out. However, these people must not be randomly selected. They must be representative. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, Hua Xiuli could not help but interject, if you want representative, I think we can do the same thing as you did for Hibiscus Pavilion. We can ask the socialites and their spouses to try it out and promote it. Chu Qingyan looked at Hua Xiuli with appreciation and said, that's right. This is the second on my list. Oh, you have other candidates? She had already heard about the Hibiscus Pavilion from Hua Xiu. Even though it was a rough description, it wasn't hard to see that Chu Qingyan had a talent for business. Thus, Qing Yanluo no longer thought that this business was just for fun. Instead, she excitedly participated in the discussion. Yes. Chu Qingyan nodded, then asked with a smile, what do you think of inviting some of the most popular courtesans in Jiangnan to try it out? Their eyes lit up. Good idea. In the brothel, the women were very particular about their appearance. They were definitely better at choosing rouge and face powder than the women outside. Although the women of aristocratic families and the common folk looked down on the women of the brothel and hated them for letting their husbands and lovers wander about in the brothel, they had no choice but to admit defeat when it came to their clothes and makeup. Although they said that they looked down on them, many women would secretly imitate them in an attempt to keep their men's hearts. That was why Chu Qingyan chose this type of woman. As long as her products were used by the courtesans, the effect would be obvious. Then, when the news spread, it would be very useful for the product to be put on the shelves. Perhaps it would become popular in Jiangnan. So, Xiao Li, do you know any famous courtesans? Chu Qingyan threw the question to her. Hua Xiao Li smiled. Big sister, don't forget that I'm a genuine woman. No matter how out of line I am, I won't go to the brothel. Chu Qingyan chuckled. Is that so? Then who was the young master sitting in the bamboo garden's private room 2 days ago, listening to the song? Hua Xiao Li's face twitched. You can't be like that. How did you know? Chu Qingyan cast a charming glance at her with an innocent expression. It's called knowing yourself and knowing your enemy. You'll win 100 battles. Ahem, ahem, ahem. I'm not a real man. Hua Xiao Li rubbed her forehead. It's not that I don't want to help. It's just that Miss Hua Yu has a bad temper. Although I'm friends with her, I still have to act according to her mood. How about this? I'll recommend you. Whether you can succeed or not depends on your ability. Chu Qingyan nodded and accepted the suggestion. However, Qing Yanluo was somewhat dissatisfied. Xiao Li, no matter what, we're in the same boat. Is it really okay for you to shirk your responsibility like this? Hearing Qing Yanluo's bandit tone, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but burst into laughter. Hua Xiaoli felt as if she had boarded a pirate ship. She wiped the cold sweat on her forehead and sighed. To tell you the truth, although Miss Hua Yu is the star of Ming Man Lu, she's a strange woman who sells her skills but not her body. She had enough money to redeem herself a long time ago, but I don't know why she didn't leave. I hit it off with her at first sight. I once wanted to help her redeem herself, but she declined. Now, Ming Man Lu is relying on her to lead the Jiangnan market. Really? Cheng Yanluo had never had a good impression of women who indulged in prostitution. Hearing this, she couldn't help but doubt. Hua Xiu shrugged and said with a slightly sorrowful tone, "This is the truth. I didn't lie to you. That good-for-nothing cousin of mine got into a fight with someone because of her some time ago. I had to go and clean up the mess." Chu Qingyan raised her hand to stop the two from continuing their discussion. Well, this matter is settled. It's getting late. Let's move on to the next question. For some reason, Chu Qingyan always unconsciously exuded a kind of domineering aura that made people submissive. Even Qing Yanluo, who was a few years older than Chu Qingyan, and Hua Xiuli, who was used to the unpredictable business world, quieted down at this moment. They looked at her solemnly without any discomfort. At that time, Hua Xiu had asked herself why she had the misconception that she would listen to Chu Qingyan's every word. However, one day, when she saw Chu Qingyan's beautiful face, she understood that there was a kind of submission, called a person's unique charm. For the second question, I've already thought of a solution, Chu Qingyan spoke confidently. She already had a plan in mind. Although she had never officially participated in social work in the modern world, her experience as a part-time worker and the marketing courses she had taken in school, as well as her personality that was good at figuring things out, had already formed a series of plans in her mind. The more Hua Xiuli and Qing Yanluo listened, the brighter their eyes became. Their blood was boiling, and they couldn't wait to go out and do something big. Qing Yan, I didn't expect you to have such a big imagination. Cheng Yanluo patted her head and couldn't hide her surprise. Big imagination? Although she had learned the word from her, she shouldn't have used it like that, okay? It didn't sound like a compliment at all. Hua Xiaoli nodded repeatedly, but there was still a doubt in her mind. You said that you want to create an independent brand. Have you thought of the name of the brand? Chu Qingyan was silent when she heard that. Then, she revealed a bright and charming smile. Continuation. Yes, it's called Continuation. Chapter 722. Continuation. Hua Xiaoli repeated the name several times. Finally, she slapped her forehead and praised, "That's good, that's good. It's like the continuation of beauty and youth. What a good name." Cheng Yanluo's mouth twitched. This person's imagination was really wild. She probably didn't know that there was a clue to her husband's name. Cheng Yanluo glanced at Chu Qingyan, who was grinning so widely that her teeth couldn't be seen. She sighed deeply. This girl was really showing off her affection. She guessed that after she and Xiao Su talked things over, she would start her daily life of tormenting single people like her. Oh my God. The brand name had been decided, and other arrangements had been made. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Chu Qingyan felt that since the first step had been taken, the next step wouldn't be a problem. Let's go and meet Miss Huayu. Chu Qingyan stood up and smiled at the two who were still drinking tea. So soon. Cheng Yanluo had just stuffed a second piece of cake into her mouth and was slurring her words. Strike while the iron is hot. She turned to Hua Xiaoli and said, so there's no time like the present. Let's do it today. Hua Xiaoli shook her head and laughed. Resolute and decisive. I like her personality. It's not bad to settle it early. Yanluo, stop eating. I'll take you to eat something more delicious. The pastries in Ming Man Lu are exquisite. You should have said so earlier. Cheng Yanluo immediately threw down the half-eaten plum blossom cake, stood up, and walked toward the door. Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiaoli looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. The weather was clear and the wind was gentle. It was really suitable for visiting brothels. In the Lin mansion, Lin Fengyi had already decided the winner when the last piece was placed. He kept the pieces and said jokingly, "How do you describe your situation? It should be that you're successful in love but unsuccessful in gambling." Hearing this, Xiao Su wasn't annoyed at all. Instead, he was in a good mood. It's better than you being successful in gambling but unsuccessful in love. Lin Fengyi's fingers paused and he glanced at him. Sure enough, after saying it out loud, this person was showing off his affection everywhere. Was this really the cold-blooded and heartless King of England? Could it be that the person he knew was different? Xiao Su seemed to have seen through his good friend's thoughts. He took a sip of tea and said faintly, "Are you doubting my authenticity? This king doesn't mind having a one-on-one fight with you." Lin Fengyi recalled the time when the two of them had sparred. He had defeated his original sword technique in 10 moves. That feeling was even worse than eating a pound of bitter gourd. The corners of Lin Fengyi's eyes twitched. Your martial arts are unrivaled. Your literary and military skills, this humble one humbly admits defeat. This prince is not very happy to be able to subdue the enemy without even fighting. Furthermore, the opponent is a dignified young scholar. Xiao Su replied to his earlier joke. Lin Fengyi shook his head. I found out that after you got together with Qing Yan, you were almost assimilated. You didn't have the time to talk to me about these things in the past. The power of love is indeed great. Are you envious? Xiao Su purposely twisted his meaning and then suggested, if you don't want to be so smug in the casino in the future, I can have Ian introduce a few to you. Lin Fengyi felt that he was getting more and more excited. There's no need for you two to worry. I still want to live a peaceful life. You really don't need it. I say, Xiao Su, control yourself. You're making me panic. Lin Fengyi facepalmed and sighed. Xiao Su leaned back in his chair. His posture was leisurely, but there was an indescribable elegance. I remember that you didn't care much about marriage in the past. In order to strengthen your position in the court, the empress arranged many marriages for you with noble families. It was a pity that those girls died one after another before they could marry into the prince's fu. At that time, I didn't see any fluctuations in your emotions. Even when your imperial grandfather arranged a marriage for you with the Chu family and the Chu family's 10-year-old Chu Qingyan secretly swapped you for someone else, you didn't care. Why did your attitude change now? Even though he had always guessed that it had something to do with Chu Qingyan, his good friend's change was truly out of his expectations. Thus, with the spirit of getting to the bottom of the matter, he couldn't help but ask today. This was the question he was most curious about to this day. When he heard the words, one after another died one after another, a dark light flashed through Xiao Su's eyes. Until the end, he still had an elegant and unrestrained appearance, but there was an additional touch of seriousness in his expression. Fengyi, when you haven't met, you feel that being alone is fine. When you meet, you will find that being alone is truly too lonely. Lin Fengyi, who was about to lean over to pick up the teacup, froze when he heard those words. It could be said that he used a pair of shocked eyes to stare fixedly at the person in front of him. Such emotional words actually came from Xiao Su's mouth. It was even more shocking than a flying rock falling from the sky. Xiao Su saw that his good friend was quite frightened by him and couldn't help but smile. He covered the teacup lid, his expression carrying a helplessness like a summer bug that couldn't talk about ice. When you meet, you will naturally understand this feeling. If I tell you now, you will only feel that it is a fantasy. It was rare for him to confide in his good friend and thank him for enlightening him last time. Unfortunately, it was the opposite of what he wanted. He wasn't pleasantly surprised, only frightened. Xiao Su felt very tired. Lin Fengyi shook his head and sneered. This kind of thing will never happen to me, because I don't need this so-called love to affect my future path. His life had always been very clear, which was to walk all the way up and fulfill his father's dying wish. Thus, there wouldn't be any accidents in his life, and he wouldn't allow any accidents to happen. I don't have your capital. I won't allow any weaknesses. Xiao Su understood the meaning behind his words, but he didn't quite agree. Ayan isn't my weakness. She can protect herself well. When necessary, she will also lend me a helping hand. Lin Fengyi was slightly surprised. Since when did Xiao Su need a woman's help? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Husband and wife are originally one. When disaster strikes, why can't we fly together? Lin Fengyi felt that his worldview had been shattered and reorganized several times today, but he still couldn't accept it. Xiao Su lowered his head and drank his tea. His smile was somewhat gentle. The little fellow had once said that she didn't want to hide behind him. She wanted to walk side by side with him, so he had been working hard to let her keep up with his pace. As long as she wanted to do something, he would cooperate. As long as she liked it, what was a mere man's dignity worth? He never felt that his beloved should stay at home to take care of her husband and children. As long as she had a dream, he would help her fulfill it. At this time, Huo Ling hurriedly ran over. What's the matter? Xiao Su raised his head and looked at him. Huo Ling swallowed his saliva. Master, the young master went to visit the brothel. Xiao Su's face turned green. Lin Fengyi was startled at first, but then he smiled maliciously. He's still young, so it's normal for him to want to experience it. Hey, aren't you going to play a game? Where are you going? Xiao Su stood up. His face was green as he said, I'm going to catch him. After saying this, he strode away. Lin Fengyi was left shaking his head and laughing. Xiao Su, Xiao Su, even you have a day like this. Chapter 723. Soon, Xiao Su disappeared from sight. Lin Fengyi threw down the chess piece and curiously asked Huo Ling, who was about to follow, is your family's little princess consort usually like this? Huo Ling thought about it awkwardly. Actually, my family's little princess consort isn't like this. It's just occasionally. Occasionally? It seemed like Xiao Su really doted on this little wife. Lin Fengyi rubbed his chin and made a decision in the blink of an eye. Let's go, I'll go take a look too. The subordinate on the side quickly stopped him. Sir, you're the magistrate of Jiangnan. I'm afraid it won't be good for you to visit brothels in broad daylight. Lin Fengyi pretended to be troubled. It won't be good for me. The subordinate sighed in relief. Sir had heard him. But how can I miss such a good show? If someone asks, just say that this official is going to observe the people's situation. If there are any bad rumors, you know what I'll do. After speaking, Lin Fengyi patted the subordinate's shoulder, looking like he had a long way to go. Then, he withdrew his hand and walked around the petrified subordinate, leisurely leaving. Sir, you can't trick your subordinate like this. Huo Ling, who hadn't left yet, looked at the subordinate sympathetically. We're really in the same boat. Huo Ling wiped his non-existent tears and left with a sigh. In front of Ming Man Brothel, Chu Qingyan and the other two looked up at the quiet building, which was different from the bustling night. Sure enough, day and night were two extremes. Because Chu Qingyan and the other two were dressed in men's clothing, they had outstanding looks and extraordinary temperaments. They quickly attracted the attention of the people in the brothel. "Io, young masters, you've come at the right time. Our young ladies have just finished freshening up. Come, quickly come in. Mama Li will introduce you to a few beauties." Mama Li, who was dressed in golden jewelry, twisted her body as she walked out. She looked to be in her 30s or 40s, and the fat on her face trembled as she spoke. When she saw Chu Qingyan and the others' clothes, she smiled until her eyes couldn't be seen, but there was a glint in her eyes. Cheng Yanluo took a step back when she heard his coy voice. She felt like she was about to throw up everything she had just eaten. Chu Qingyan, on the other hand, was very used to it. She smiled appropriately. Then I'll have to trouble Mama Li. Seeing Chu Qingyan's temperament, Mrs. Li's smile is so big that her molars can't be seen. Generally, this kind of young master is very generous. Unfortunately, Chu Qingyan was no ordinary person. Because the brothel was a nighttime business, when the group of people entered, the building was empty. If she didn't know that this was a brothel, Chu Qingyan would have thought that she had come to a magnificent building. It had to be said that the more famous a brothel was, the better its decoration was. Seeing that Mother Li was about to call for someone, Hua Xiuli stepped forward and waved her fan with a smile. "Mother Li, we want to meet Miss Hua Yu." Only then did Mother Li notice Hua Xiuli. She was so focused on Chu Qingyan that she didn't notice this regular customer. At this moment, her expression changed slightly. So it's young Master Hua. Are these two ladies also women? Everyone in Jiangnan knows that Hua Xiuli likes to dress up as a woman, so Mother Li's smile is a little forced. "Mother Li, what kind of eyes do you have? We're 7 feet tall men. How can you suspect that we're women? Aren't you looking down on us?" Cheng Yanluo said impatiently. Cheng Yanluo's sudden outburst made Nanny Li's expression change. She glanced at the two women who were much taller than ordinary women and couldn't help but feel relieved. "You're too kind. Both of you have dignified appearances and are simply talented people. I'm sorry for offending you just now. Please be magnanimous and don't take it to heart." Chu Qingyan was very satisfied with Cheng Yanluo's preemptive show of strength. Seeing that it was about time, she said, "Mother Li, we heard that Miss Hua Yu plays a good zither. My friend and I are good at music, so we would like to meet her. Please make an exception." After saying that, she winked at Hua Xiuli. Hua Xiuli's mouth twitched. "Good. She wants me to introduce them and even wants me to be a sucker." Although she thinks so, she generously took out 100 taels of silver and stuffed it into Mother Li's hand. "Mother Li, I'm an old acquaintance. Please do me a favor." Mother Li was still hesitating. When she saw the silver, her eyes lit up and she immediately changed her mind. "Please wait a moment. I'll arrange it for you." She ordered the servants to treat them well and went upstairs with swaying hips. Cheng Yanluo was curious and whispered, this Miss Huayu is so arrogant that the procuress has to invite her personally? She's the money tree of Mingman Lu. What do you think? Hua Xiuli said with a smile, waving a fan. Chu Qingyan looked at Mingman Lu. When she looked up, she saw a few girls standing by the railing and throwing flirtatious glances at her. She nodded politely and smiled, which made the girls nosebleed. Cheng Yanluo smiled and said, "You really like men and women, old and young. You can't blame me for giving up on my natural beauty." Chu Qingyan's smile was a little annoying. Cheng Yanluo and Hua Xiuli pretended not to hear it. At this time, Motherly came back. "Miss Huayu is up. Please come in." Chu Qingyan nodded and followed Motherly upstairs. "Young Master Hua, how should I address these two gentlemen?" Seeing how generous Hua Xiuli was, Motherly was curious about the identity of Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo. She wanted to use this time to build a relationship with them. Maybe they were the god of fortune. After all, Mingman Lu was a long-term business. If she could rope in a few distinguished guests, her future income would be smooth. "This is Chu Yan. He's my business partner." Hua Xiuli knew what Motherly was thinking, so she didn't hide it. Since she was working with Chu Qingyan, when the product was launched, everyone would know her identity. Moreover, they came here to talk about cooperation with Miss Huayu, so they might as well be honest. Cheng Yanluo said, "Cheng Luo." So she was working with the Hua family. Motherly was even more attentive. The Hua family was a big business in Jiangnan. It had been a long time since they cooperated with anyone. Those who could cooperate with the Hua family must be of high status. People in the brothel were good at taking advantage of the situation. Anyway, they wouldn't lose anything. Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiuli looked at each other and smiled. They went up the spiral wooden stairs and walked to the innermost room. From time to time, they would bump into a few boldly dressed women. Cheng Yanluo was a little shy at first, but when she saw Chu Qingyan's calm expression, she couldn't help but despise herself. After all, she was a doctor and was used to seeing women. How could she lose to a little girl? Therefore, she also stuck out her chest, unwilling to fall behind. Chu Qingyan was amused. Motherly stopped in a room at the end of the corridor. She turned around and smiled. "My Huayu likes quiet, so she lives here. It's not easy to be disturbed." She knocked on the door. "Huayu, they're here. Please come in." A charming voice rang out. Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo looked at each other. Their bones melted just by hearing the voice. They didn't know how beautiful the person was. Chapter 724. Hearing the voices inside, Nanny Li immediately opened the door for Chu Qingyan and the others. She then bowed and smiled. "Then I won't disturb you. If there's anything, send someone to inform Nanny Li." Chu Qingyan nodded. "Thank you." After Nanny Li left, Chu Qingyan and the others looked at each other before stepping into the room. This was a very beautiful and luxurious room. A delicate fragrance wafted in the air. As soon as they entered, they felt refreshed. The three of them stood in the middle of the room. There was no one else in the room except for a pink gauze curtain. They knew that someone was behind the curtain. Hua Xiu was the first to speak. "Miss Huayu, I've brought two good friends with me. Nanny Li has already told Huayu." A graceful voice came from inside, only to see the gauze curtain fluttering without wind, and then two shadows approached, reaching out to pull open the gauze curtain. Two young girls took the lead and walked out, lifting the beaded gauze curtain to both sides. These two women were dressed as maids. Their appearances were delicate and pretty, and their expressions were respectful. It was obvious that their masters were delicate and exquisite. Chu Qingyan calmly waited for the master inside to come out. As if they had calculated the time, after the two maids stood still, light and slow footsteps came from inside. Every step was like a cat scratching at one's heart. Very quickly, a blue figure appeared in front of everyone. She had a beautiful slender waist, and there weren't many accessories on her body. The most eye-catching one was the jade hairpin on her head, and the tassels on her waist swayed as she walked. The multicolored beads shone brightly, and there was a kind of breathtaking dazzle. Her wide sleeves hung down, revealing her white wrists. Her fingertips were smooth, and she held a snow-white fan to cover her face, revealing a pair of beautiful eyes that were dazzling. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but think of a poem she had learned in the past. It was called thousands of times before it could be recited. Half of my face was covered by a pipa. Although they were both women, Chen Yanluo had to admit that the woman in front of her was already stunning even though she hadn't shown her full face. My name is Hua Yu. Greetings. Hua Yu lowered her head and curtsied. The fan that covered her face was pinned to her waist. As she moved, her temperament was already evident. When she raised her head again, a face as beautiful as an immortal's was revealed. Chu Qingyan took a light breath. She didn't expect to see such a natural and elegant beauty in such a place. Moreover, the person in front of her didn't put on a haughty attitude just because of her identity. She made people feel comfortable at first glance. Chu Qingyan's eyes flashed with faint admiration. She cupped her hands and bowed. I'm Chu Qingyan. It's my honor to meet Miss Hua Yu. Miss Hua Yu is elegant and beautiful. You live up to your reputation. Although she had heard a lot of Chu Qingyan's words, most of them were frivolous and licentious. Hua Yu couldn't help but look at the person standing in the middle of the room when she heard such sincere praise. She was dressed in a fiery red outfit. It would be difficult for an ordinary man to wear such a colorful outfit. However, this person's facial features were exquisite. She had a pair of clear and bright eyes that seemed to be able to speak, moving people's heartstrings. Her jade-like skin was like a transparent ice stone, clear as ice and smooth as jade. Her lips were naturally slightly curved, giving people a warm feeling when she wasn't smiling. Just by standing there, it felt as if there was no one in the world more suited to wearing such a colorful outfit than her. She was like a ball of flame that warmed people's hearts. In a single glance, it seemed as if there was a myriad of amorous feelings piled up on her brows. This person made people stop breathing at a glance. Hua Yu pinched the round fan in her hand subtly and calmed her suddenly accelerated heartbeat. Then, she ignored Chu Qingyan and faced Hua Xiaoli. She complained, Xiaoli, you didn't tell me you were coming to see me. I thought something big had happened. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have seen you during the day. Hua Xiaoli didn't expect Hua Yu to ignore Chu Qingyan the moment she came out. She silently lit a candle for Chu Qingyan in her heart. Then, she said apologetically, I'm so sorry to disturb you in a hurry. I hope I didn't disturb your rest, Hua Yu. Don't be so polite. Tell me. You don't come here for no reason. Why are you looking for Hua Yu? Hua Yu walked to the main seat and invited them to sit. There were two maids standing at the side. One made tea, and the other brought pastries. Then, they quietly retreated behind Hua Yu. They were very well behaved. Chu Qingyan was not annoyed at being ignored. While the two were talking, she politely looked around the room, from the books on the shelf to the zither under the windowsill. When she retracted her gaze, she inadvertently met Hua Yu's sneaky gaze. She smiled calmly, and the latter picked up the teacup unnaturally to hide her emotions. Hua Xiaoli did not notice the two's actions and did not hold back. Actually, it's Chu Yan who is looking for you. As she spoke, she turned to Chu Qingyan and said, you tell Lady Hua Yu what you think. Hua Yu blinked and looked at Chu Qingyan. Her expression was just right. It was not too charming, but there was a hint of charm. Young Master Chu, please advise me. Everyone has a love for beauty. Chu Qingyan was no exception. At this time, with a beauty in front of her, she could not help but speak softly. Miss Hua Yu, I'm cooperating with young Master Hua. We plan to do women's skin care and makeup business. However, our products have never been seen on the market. They are very novel, so we need someone to promote them. I asked young Master Hua about the influential women in Jiangnan. Young Master Hua recommended Miss Hua Yu, so I came to visit you today. Qing Yanluo quietly listened to their conversation. She found that the little girl's words were very skillful. First, she explained her identity and the process. In her words, she praised Hua Yu's identity. This made people feel comfortable listening to her and let their guard down. Finally, she threw out the purpose of her visit. Qing Yanluo could not help but admire her. The little girl's growth was really too fast. Hua Yu pondered for a moment before saying, "Young Master Chu, what you mean is that because your products are more unique and no customer has used them before, you're afraid that the customers will be worried and not dare to buy them. Therefore, you need Hua Yu to use them first so that the customers will not wait and see." As soon as these words came out, Chu Qingyan had a whole new level of respect for this woman. She did not deny it. Just as Miss Hua Yu said, "I would like to invite Miss Hua Yu to help. We will provide these products for free for Miss Hua Yu to try. If you find them useful, please promote them on our behalf. However, since Miss Hua Yu has used them, it will be a good publicity effect in itself. We don't dare to say how useful our products are. Everything depends on Miss Hua Yu's test results. Moreover, if Miss Hua Yu agrees to my conditions, no matter what new products we produce in the future, we will send them to Miss Hua Yu for free. What do you think?" After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she looked at Hua Yu with a smile and waited for the result. Hua Yu took a sip of tea. When she looked up at her, she did not answer her question. "Young Master Chu, do you know how to play the zither?" Chapter 725. Play the zither. What the hell? Were Hua Yu's brainwaves on the same circuit as hers? Chu Qingyan was in disbelief, but she didn't show it on her face. She pondered for a while. Big Ice Block had taught her for a few years. She might not be better than him, but she was at least presentable. "I know a little," she said modestly. A smile appeared on Hua Yu's face. There was a hint of joy in it, which made Hua Xiuli and Qing Yanluo confused. "Hua Yu is not talented, but can I embarrass myself in front of young Master Chu and play a song?" Chu Qingyan didn't understand why the conversation had turned into playing the zither, but she didn't refuse. After all, she had a favor to ask. "It's my pleasure to hear Miss Hua Yu play the zither. Please." Hua Yu nodded and ordered someone to set the zither. She stood up and walked to the zither table by the window. At this moment, Hua Xiuli narrowed her eyes and glanced at Hua Yu and Chu Qingyan. Hua Yu's music was usually priceless. Why did she suddenly want to play the zither? She skipped over her and Yan Luo and only consulted Qingyan. She couldn't understand some of Hua Yu's actions, so she was puzzled at this moment. At this moment, the sound of the zither began. Chu Qingyan sat upright and listened attentively. One could tell if a person was an expert by the sound of the zither. Chu Qingyan had heard Big Ice Block play the zither and flute together with Yan Luo and Ethereal. She had always thought that it was the most moving and beautiful music she had ever heard, but she didn't expect Hua Yu's zither to be so outstanding. One couldn't help but feel high and low with her music. Qing Yanluo was already drowsy, but when she heard the sound of the zither, she was suddenly energized. She looked at Hua Yu in surprise, feeling like she had met her match. The beauty was already beautiful. She lowered her head and played the zither continuously. The veil behind her danced in the wind. It was ethereal like a fairyland, dreamy and beautiful. Chu Qingyan felt that if she were a man, it would be hard not to be moved by such a woman. It was no wonder that she had become a famous beauty in Jiangnan that one could only dream of. The song ended. While everyone was still immersed in her zither, Hua Yu had already left her seat and bowed. "I've embarrassed myself. Hua Yu, if you call your zither skills ugly, then how am I supposed to live with myself when I don't know anything?" Hua Xiu returned to her usual talkative self. She squinted her eyes and smiled. It wasn't a compliment, but her tone was very appropriate. However, it was enough to make people burst with joy. Hua Yu smiled and said, "You're the only one who knows how to tease me." Chu Qingyan smiled and said, "What Xiaoli said is very reasonable. Miss Hua Yu's zither skills are really impressive." Hua Yu glanced at her, restrained the smile on her lips, and slowly walked back to her seat. "By the way, Hua Yu, what's the name of that song? Why haven't I heard it before?" Hua Xiaoli asked curiously. "The song just now was composed by Hua Yue. It's the first time I played it in front of an outsider." Speaking of this, Hua Yue raised her head slightly and met Chu Qingyan's eyes. She pursed her lips and finally smiled naturally. "I wonder if young Master Chu heard anything from the song just now. Was she testing her?" This was Chu Qingyan's first thought. She thought to herself, could it be that there was hope for this cooperation if I answered her question correctly? I'll say it first. Anyway, I don't know how to play the zither. I only know how to appreciate it. I felt that your song was a little sad, unlike your usual self. However, it's normal for a girl to be a little sad." Hua Xiaoli guessed the same as Chu Qingyan. She thought that Hua Yu was making things difficult for her, so she spoke first to stall for time and give Chu Qingyan some time to think. Hua Yu didn't comment. "I don't think it's sad. I think it's because I'm open-minded after experiencing all kinds of things in the world. I'm looking forward to the future." Cheng Yanluo shook her head and rejected Hua Xiaoli's answer. Hua Xiaoli frowned. "What you said seems a little interesting." Hua Yu looked at Cheng Yanluo in surprise and nodded at her answer. "Miss Cheng is right, but it's not the answer that Hua Yu wants." "Miss Cheng." Cheng Yanluo touched her nose. Was she such a failure in disguising as a man? She was seen through at a glance. Hua Yu saw through Cheng Yanluo's thoughts and said embarrassedly, "I'm sorry. It's because we've been here for a long time, so we can still tell the difference between a man and a woman." Cheng Yanluo waved her hand. "It's fine. It's my first time dressing as a woman, so I'm not very familiar with it." Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Cheng Yanluo glanced at Chu Qingyan and snickered secretly. However, there were times when she was wrong. For example, she didn't recognize the little girl's identity at this time. Perhaps it was because the little girl had been dressing as a man all year round, so she was already familiar with it. Hua Yu smiled and then turned to Chu Qingyan. "What do you think, Master Chu?" Chu Qingyan stopped smiling and carefully considered his words. Then, he met Hua Yu's gaze and spoke slowly. "I think Xiaoli and Yanluo are right. It's just that it's not comprehensive. In the zither music, there's confusion, struggle, courage, and arrogance. It's the settling of 1,000 sails. It's the transition from a young and inexperienced person to a mature person. It's never losing hope for the future. I think what Miss Hua Yu wants to express is waiting." "Waiting for what?" Chu Qingyan didn't say it explicitly, but she knew that she was right. Because she saw the initial calmness in Hua Yu's eyes, then surprise, and finally suppressed excitement. So she felt that there was no need for her to continue speaking. In the tea house opposite Ming Man Lu, Lin Fengyi looked at the person beside him with some confusion. "Xiao Su, didn't you say that you're here to catch someone? Why don't you go in?" Xiao Su's expression was indifferent. "Do you have a problem with that?" This was a typical sign of Xiao Su's displeasure. Lin Fengyi didn't want to provoke him and drank his tea silently. He thought that he would see a good show, but he didn't expect to just sit here and do nothing. Lin Fengyi thought of the stack of documents on his desk and felt an inexplicable headache. Lin Fengyi didn't know how long they had to sit here. He couldn't help but ask Huoling, "What's your master up to?" Huoling glanced at his master before saying, "Perhaps master feels that rushing into a brothel to catch someone would damage his image, so he chose to wait here for the right time to catch someone." Lin Fengyi felt that this answer sounded plausible, but it was a little unreliable. Turan shook his head. This subordinate feels that master is thinking for the young master. Although he doesn't like the young master to enter a brothel, master respects the young master's decision. However, it's understandable that he can't be forgiven. As soon as Turan finished speaking, Xiao Su, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and glanced at Turan. Who asked you to speak out of turn? Turan straightened his neck and replied, this subordinate is just stating facts. Xiao Su's face darkened. These people were getting bolder and bolder. Lin Fengyi's eyes lit up. This answer sounded a little interesting. Arrogant people also had a day where they would think for others. Lin Fengyi suddenly looked forward to the meeting between the two. It seemed that this trip was worth it. Chapter 726. Clap, clap, Huayu clapped her hands, and a strange faint blush appeared on her face. As the saying goes, there are few soulmates. Who will listen when the string is broken? Huayu is lucky to be able to find a soulmate in my lifetime. Chu Qingyan secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and then cupped her hands. Miss Huayu, you flatter me. I was just lucky. The word soulmate is too heavy. I can't bear the title of Miss Huayu. Huayu shook her head, and looked at Chu Qingyan with a more thought-provoking gaze. There was a strange light in her eyes. Hua Xiuli and Qin Yanluo were happy. It seemed that there was hope for this cooperation. Chu Qingyan, don't be modest. It's rare for Miss Huayu to admire someone so much. Hua Xiuli took the opportunity to say, then, Miss Huayu, about our new product. Huayu glanced at her. They say that businessmen value profits. Indeed, business can't be left out of the 3 sentences. Did you bring the samples? I want to take a look. As soon as she said that, it meant that she agreed. Chu Qingyan nodded and asked Yanluo to take out the things that she had prepared. When Xuexin lipstick was taken out, even the knowledgeable Huayu's eyes lit up. She held the 2 things in her hands and looked at them, and she was reluctant to put them down. I'm sure that once this is sold, it will cause a sensation. Chu Qingyan was relieved. With Miss Huayu's words, I'm relieved. Huayu is a famous talented woman in Jiangnan. Every time there's a commotion here, there will be people imitating her. If we can cooperate with Huayu, we'll have a huge consumer group, Hua Xiuli said, half praising and half proud. Don't make up stories about me. I'm just a woman who can't make a living in a brothel. Famous and talented women are just titles that people give me face. It's just a false reputation. Huayu's tone was dejected as she spoke. However, she turned her gaze to Chu Qingyan. She seemed to be pondering, as if she was waiting for her reaction. Chu Qingyan was so happy with Huayu's agreement that she didn't notice Huayu's scrutinizing gaze. It was as if she had already included Huayu in her team. She didn't have as much scruples as before and spoke in a comforting tone. Miss Huayu, you don't have to think so much. We all rely on our own abilities to make a living. As long as we don't steal or rob, we will have a clear conscience. Moreover, there is no distinction between high and low jobs. Don't belittle yourself. Huayu wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. When she heard Chu Qingyan's words, her heart trembled slightly. Hua Xiuli added, Chu Yan is right. Huayu, don't think too much. You're not a sentimental person. Why are you suddenly denying yourself? Did something happen? My birthday will be here soon. In the blink of an eye, it will be 16. When I think about how I'm still wasting my time here, I feel a little lost. I don't know where my future lies. Huayu sighed softly. Hua Xiuli was also a little sad for her, but her tone was reproachful. I told you before that if you meet someone who is willing to treat you sincerely, you should leave this place. If not, you have enough money to redeem yourself. Don't waste the rest of your life here. Huayu mocked herself. Do you think a girl like me is qualified to meet a good man? She said this to Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan cherished Huayu's talent. Miss Huayu, you don't have to belittle yourself. I believe that the heavens are kind to everyone. Perhaps marriage is destined. You can't rush it. You will inadvertently meet someone. Hearing this, Hua Yu took a deep look at Chu Qingyan. Hua Yu also believes that marriage can't be forced. It's destined. Cheng Yenluo was not like Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiuli, who were ignorant of love affairs. When Hua Yu opened her mouth to say those words, she secretly sized her up. Her eyes were thoughtful. When Chu Qingyan and the other two left the room and walked downstairs, Hua Xiuli clapped her hands and laughed. She nudged the person beside her with her elbow. Hey, how did you guess what Hua Yu was trying to express in her zither? Chu Qingyan smiled, but there was no trace of arrogance on her face. Some people use scenery to express their emotions, and they use objects to describe others. People who are addicted to poetry, music, chess, calligraphy, and painting always have their own pride. These people usually don't like to use words to express their thoughts. Instead, they use the things they love to express themselves. That's why sometimes, one can hear a person's inner thoughts just by listening to their voice. You make it sound so mysterious. Hua Xiuli dealt with accounts all day long, so she couldn't quite understand the meaning of her words. Or rather, she could understand it, but she couldn't clearly relate to what Hua Yu was thinking. She's showing off. She's bullying your little brain. Cheng Yenluo hit the nail on the head. Chu Qingyan shrugged and explained formally, actually, I only made this deduction based on Hua Yu's identity, situation, and personality, as well as my conversations with her. If you really want me to figure out the zither music, I don't have such profound skills. However, I have eyes, I can see, I have a brain, and I can think. So, I can figure it out pretty much. As soon as she finished speaking, Hua Xiuli was dumbfounded. It seems that I've really found a very reliable partner. That's why you have to suck up to me. Chu Qingyan winked at her mischievously. Cheng Yenluo rolled her eyes. Indeed, one is marked by one's company. After being with her big ice cube, this little girl's IQ for fooling people had increased. Hua Xiuli raised an eyebrow. Mutual benefit. Chu Qingyan's lips curled into a knowing smile. When they walked out of Ming Man restaurant, Chu Qingyan said to Hua Xiuli, although Miss Hua Yu's side is settled, the effect won't be so quick. It'll take at least 3 days. During this time, I need your help with something. Just say it. Hua Xiuli nodded. I'll get someone to give you a flyer tomorrow. Help me find someone to copy 500 copies, then send someone to distribute them on the streets 3 days later. Flyers were very common in modern times, so Chu Qingyan had thought of this from the beginning. Hua Xiuli smiled slyly. She obviously understood her intention. That's easy to say. Smart. Cheng Yenluo sneered. After the momentum is enough, it'll be officially sold on the shelves 7 days later. That's the most crucial moment. Chu Qingyan looked at the sun in the sky, and a lofty feeling rose in her heart. Maybe it won't be long before we can lead the trend of the times, become the richest man in Jiangnan, marry a tall, rich, and handsome man, and reach the pinnacle of life. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited. Chu Qingyan smacked her lips, imagining the beautiful future. Just then, someone tugged at her sleeve. I think you shouldn't be so excited. It's better to return to reality. Look, who's here? As soon as Cheng Yenluo finished speaking, Chu Qingyan looked in the direction of her gaze. A familiar figure appeared in her sight, and the smile on her face froze. Big ice cube. Chapter 727. Chu Qingyan swallowed her saliva and said to Yenluo, is the sun too bright? Am I seeing things? Otherwise, why would my big ice block be here? Ignoring the girl's pitiful pleading, Cheng Yenluo patted her shoulder and said helplessly, although the sun is bright today, it's not to the extent of making one's eyes blurry. Little girl, you're on your own now. Cheng Yenluo nodded to someone nearby and said to Hua Xiu, let's find a place to give Qingyan some time. Hua Xiu also saw Xiao Su and wanted to greet him out of courtesy, but Cheng Yenluo grabbed her arm. She was not stupid. She could tell that something was wrong with Chu Qingyan's expression. Although it was strange, she obeyed Qing Yanluo and followed her to a tea house. Before she left, she didn't forget to wave at Chu Qingyan. Have a good talk. Come find us later. In the blink of an eye, the two people beside her had already left her side. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt a little isolated and helpless. She wrung her hands for a while, then raised her head and nonchalantly waved at someone nearby. Hi, what a coincidence. Chu Qingyan sometimes admired herself for being able to remain calm at a time like this. It seemed that after all these years, she had learned another skill, which was to pretend to be stupid. It's not a coincidence. I've been waiting here. Xiao Su took in the change from her initial panic to her current feigned surprise. He snorted softly. Watching him walk over step by step, Chu Qingyan suddenly felt an invisible pressure pressing down on her. Wait for me. But I'm not done with my business yet. She evaded his question. At this moment, he was already standing in front of her. She had to raise her head to see his expression. However, she felt the building behind her reminding her that she had done something good. She pretended to be stupid and her gaze rested on the dark veins on his chest. She didn't dare to look up. Because people who did bad things easily felt guilty. Going to a brothel? Ian, who gave you the guts? The dense cold air had already surrounded Chu Qingyan at full speed. Chu Qingyan hurriedly reached out and pulled his sleeve when she felt the fierce aura approaching. Big Ice Cube, did you misunderstand something? Xiao Su raised his hand and pulled his sleeve out of her hand. The gauze hat covered his expression, but she could still feel his displeasure. What do you think I misunderstood? Chu Qingyan's face fell as she weakly defended herself. Big Ice Cube, I'm going there for business, not to play. It was obviously the truth, but for some reason, she didn't have any confidence in saying it in front of him. Before he could answer, Chu Qingyan cleverly changed the topic. Big Ice Cube, why are you here? What about Huling and Turin? Have you had lunch? Are you hungry? I know that there's a snack shop in front that has pretty good wonton noodles. Do you want to try it? Stand at attention and shut up. Xiao Su's eyes twitched. Don't talk nonsense if you don't know how to change the topic. Chu Qingyan immediately stood at attention. The youth's appearance was very good-looking, especially when he stood at the street with this standard military posture. It was quite eye-catching. Sensing the surrounding gazes, Xiao Su was slightly annoyed. His gaze was locked on her, his expression cold. Do you still remember what you promised me? Ah. What? She had promised him many things. Her expression was as though saying, which one are you referring to? Xiao Su suddenly felt like his anger had hit cotton. He raised his hand and rubbed his forehead. Ian, you dash. Before he could finish speaking, a maid ran over from Ming Man restaurant and walked straight to Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan remembered her. She was the maid who served Hua Yu. She seemed to be called Huang Yi. Young Master Chu, it's good that you didn't leave. My miss asked this servant to give this to you. As she spoke, the maid handed over a sachet embroidered with multicolored butterflies. Chu Qingyan took it, not knowing what was going on. Your miss is? Huang Yi smiled ambiguously. My miss said that this is a meeting gift. Because young Master Chu is the first person to hear her zither music, she wants to express her gratitude. Chu Qingyan understood what she was saying, but he didn't understand the expression on her face. It was a little strange. At this time, Huang Yi withdrew with a smile. Chu Qingyan played with the sachet in his hand and even sniffed it. He raised his head and smiled at the person beside him. This sachet's workmanship is quite exquisite. Xiao Su's face darkened when he heard the maid's first sentence. Now that he saw the butterfly embroidered on the sachet, his face darkened even more. Flying together. Learning from Liang Shanbua and Zhu Yingtai. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, the person in front of her flicked his sleeves and left in a huff. She held the sachet in a daze as she watched him stride away. Her brain suddenly crashed. I didn't expect Xiao Su to be like this when he gets jealous. Standing on the windowsill on the second floor, Lin Fengyi rubbed his chin with a playful expression. At this time, footsteps came up to the second floor. Yan Luo, isn't that the person Qing Yan likes? Why is Qing Yan so scared? Hua Xiuli asked in confusion. How should I put it? Don't judge the little girl by her fearless appearance. Once she gets caught for doing something wrong, the first person she'll be scared of is her husband. Qing Yan Luo laughed gloatingly. Hua Xiuli was even more confused. Are you referring to the incident at Mingman Pavilion? But we're not going there to indulge in debauchery. Besides, we're all women. What kind of tricks can we play? No. Do you know that jealousy doesn't matter when, where, or who? Besides, her husband is extremely possessive. He won't tolerate any random people around his woman. Wait a minute. Qing Yan Luo glanced at her and smirked. Her husband must have given you a hard time before, right? Huh? Hua Xiuli scratched her head in confusion. Qing Yan Luo explained, you must have been investigated. Otherwise, with his temper, he wouldn't have let the little girl work with you. Hua Xiuli was dumbfounded. Then, she indignantly spoke up for Chu Qingyan. Are you serious? Qingyan's life is so oppressive. I thought she'd be a carefree person with a straightforward personality. Doesn't she feel that she has no freedom? Qing Yan Luo raised a finger and waved it in front of her eyes. No. It's hard to explain the story between the two of them. I can only say that one of them was willing to be beaten and the other was willing to be beaten. However, the truth is often not what you see. It's hard to say who's the one suffering. Hua Xiuli blinked her eyes. Could it be that the person who suffered was the cold one? She couldn't help but think of a wicked idea. She wanted to laugh when she imagined the way Chu Qingyan subdued him. But when she turned to the second floor and saw that familiar figure, the corners of her mouth that had just curled up in her sleeves instantly fell. Lin Fengyi. Chapter 728. Lin Fengyi. As soon as these three words came out, the person standing in front of the window turned around in surprise. By the time he saw who it was, the smile on his face had already disappeared and he was looking at her with a straight face. So it's Miss Hua. Long time no see. Lin Fengyi nodded politely. On the other hand, Qing Yan Luo was shocked by Hua Xiu's rare outburst. She patted her chest and whispered into Hua Xiu's ear, who is he? Hua Xiu glared at Lin Fengyi angrily and replied casually, a mortal enemy. I didn't expect to meet him here. I'm going to meet him. Although Hua Xiu didn't reveal his identity, Qing Yan Luo narrowed her eyes when she saw Hua Xiu's expression. There was going to be a good show. Hence, she followed behind Hua Xiu and walked over slowly. How rare. Isn't young Master Tai busy with official business and doesn't have time to come out for a stroll? Why do you have the leisure to come out for tea today? She looked at the teacup on the table and said in a strange tone. Lin Fengyi didn't change his expression because of her tone and continued to look upright. Miss Hua, this humble one has to remind you of two things. Tai isn't this humble one's surname, so please don't forget. Also, although an official works for the people, it's not a life of toil. There's still time for leisure and entertainment. Otherwise, if word gets out, people will think that the imperial court is harsh on officials. You should be careful. Perhaps Lin Fengyi was in a good mood after seeing his good friend suffer, so he was in the mood to speak more with this girl who didn't see eye to eye. Otherwise, he would only say 2 words if he could say 3 words. I didn't expect the taciturn official Lin to have such a long-winded speech. I thought you weren't good with words. I was worried that the way you speak wouldn't allow the officials to understand your daily orders. It seems that I've worried too much. Hua Xiu crossed her arms and leaned against the pillar. Her tone was full of mockery. Cheng Yanluo was dumbfounded. Even though she hadn't known Hua Xiu for more than 2 days, she could tell that Hua Xiu was someone who could hide her true nature well. She wasn't an impulsive person. However, the two people in front of her were bickering with each other. It was as if she was given a knife and she would slash it. What kind of deep grudge did Hua Xiu have with this person? Also, the man in front of him was as cool as a bamboo. He looked like a talented person. He was a bit cold, but he didn't look like a heinous person. Also, he heard Hua Xiu call him sir. His identity should be an official of Jiangnan. Originally, they were doing business in Jiangnan, so officials and businessmen should help each other. Just as she had the thought of mediating, she extinguished it. Anyway, the little lass's husband had a higher status. Even if he caused trouble, for the sake of the little lass, he would definitely not stand by and do nothing. Having figured this out, Cheng Yanluo went back to watching the show. There was something fishy going on between these two people. Lin Fengyi was very calm about Hua Xiu's verbal attack. If this little bit of skill could affect him, then he would be defeated in less than 2 rounds in the officialdom. Miss Hua is really concerned about my officials. Next time, I'll pass on your good intentions. Lin Fengyi deflected the attack with little effort. You're the parents of the people. We, the people, have to rely on you to live and work in peace and contentment. This little bit of concern is only natural. Although Hua Xiu said so, she was already exploding with anger. However, she still suppressed her anger. By the way, Lord Lin, there's something I'd like to ask you. Please go ahead. Lin Fengyi sat back in his seat and said leisurely. She was obviously standing, but she had an aura that was even weaker than when he was sitting. Hua Xiu snorted and tried to regain her aura. My cousin stayed in your cell for 3 days, but when he came back, he fell ill. The doctor said he was starving. I'd like to ask, did you neglect your duty by abusing a prisoner? Is that so? Lin Fengyi frowned slightly. She was pleased to see him in a difficult position. He chuckled and said, the treatment in Jiangnan's prison is not bad. There has never been a case of prisoners not being given food. I heard that your cousin was hooting in his cell that he would rather starve to death than eat shark's fin and bird's nest. When I heard about this before, I really admired your cousin's integrity. The eloquent Hua Xiu was rendered speechless by his words. Because what Lin Fengyi said was indeed very likely to happen to her good-for-nothing cousin. Hua Xiu wanted to use this to dampen his spirit, but she didn't expect to be checkmated by him. Lin Fengyi wasn't in the mood to talk to her anymore when he thought of the piles of official documents in the residence. He stood up and cupped his hands. The magistrate's prison is not a shelter. You can't come and go as you please. I hope Miss Hua can discipline your cousin properly. I won't disturb you two any further. Goodbye. Hua Xiu looked at Lin Fengyi's departing figure with fire in her eyes. She gritted her teeth. Miser, stingy, black-faced, cold-blooded and heartless, Cheng Yanluo looked curiously at Hua Xiu, who was nagging, and then at the man who was already far away. She patted Hua Xiu's shoulder. I don't think his skin is black-skinned. You should scold someone more practical. No, he's black-hearted. Hua Xiu picked up the cup on the table and gulped it down, trying to extinguish the anger in her heart. Hua Xiu came back to her senses and looked at the cup in her hand. She suddenly felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Heavens, she actually drank that miser's saliva indirectly. Ba, 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 on the street. Chu Qingyan held a sachet in her hand and hesitated as she watched the man stride away. Should she chase after him or not? If she chased after him, how would she coax him later? Would it add fuel to the fire? If she didn't chase after him, would she let him go back and calm down first? But would it get colder? In the end, Chu Qingyan chased after him bitterly. It was better to be safe than sorry. If Big Ice Cube ignored her when she went back, she would be in trouble. After Xiao Su took a few steps, he gradually slowed down. When he heard the sound of footsteps behind him, his expression relaxed a lot. Suddenly, her waist was hugged by someone. "What are you doing?" His tone was still very cold, but no one noticed that the beautiful lips under the gauze hat had curled up into a smile. "Big Ice Cube, I want to hug you." Chu Qingyan buried her head in his back and said shamelessly. Only God knew how much courage it took for her to do that. "Don't forget what you're wearing. You're pulling and tugging. What are you doing?" His tone softened a little. As soon as he said that, Chu Qingyan felt the guessing gazes on her back. Two men, hugging. Her face fell. It's over. Big Ice Cube's reputation. Just as she was feeling vexed, a force came from her wrist. In the blink of an eye, she was pressed against the wall of a sparsely populated alley. What she couldn't ignore was the burning gaze through the veil and the heat that was spewing out onto her cheeks. They were practically face to face with no gap at all. Chapter 729. At this moment, a gust of wind blew, lifting the veil of the veil and hanging it on the hairpin on Chu Qingyan's head. As soon as Chu Qingyan raised her head, she could see the blue sea and blue sky in his eyes. She was lost in it for a moment. "Why did you go to Mingman brothel?" Looking at her dazed look, Xiao Su's anger dissipated, but he couldn't let her go so easily. "You know that I want to do a skincare business in Jiangnan, but the products are very novel, so I want to find people to try them, mainly for publicity. So I chose Miss Huayu from Mingman brothel as one of the publicity targets. Although she was born in Mingman brothel, she is famous in Jiangnan, which will make our publicity twice the result with half the effort. Miss Huayu knows Miss Huayu, so she recommended us. Then we went to talk to her about this business. You know that Mingman brothel is open at night and is idle during the day. And we were racing against time, so we didn't have time to tell you. I know you don't like me going to Mingman brothel, but I really just went there to do something. And I'm a girl, what do you think I can do? So don't think too much, ha." Chu Qingyan didn't know if she was fascinated by his beauty, but she told him everything like she was pouring beans, or she really wanted to dispel his misunderstanding. In the face of such a frank little fellow, the gloominess in Xiao Su's heart finally dissipated, but the sour taste still lingered on his body. "Don't forget that you're wearing men's clothes," Xiao Su said indifferently. And who said that there were only women and men in Mingman brothel? But he couldn't say it out loud. If the little girl couldn't resist her curiosity and went to see, he would lose more than he gained. "Big Ice Block, if I don't wear men's clothes, do you want me to wear women's clothes? Can women go to that kind of place?" Chu Qingyan muttered. Xiao Su's face darkened at the thought of her appearing in front of everyone in women's clothing. No. Although he did not pay attention to appearance, the little fellow's appearance was one in a million. At least in his eyes, no one could compare to her. Therefore, he did not like the way those men looked at the little fellow. "This won't do, that won't do. Big Ice Cube, what exactly do you want?" Her legs were pressed down by him, and both her hands were in his hands. Her back was against the wall, and his entire body was leaning against her. She felt that her entire body was unbearably hot, and she felt that his words made her feel extremely uncomfortable. Both mentally and physically, she was extremely unhappy, so she protested. "Let go of me. Do you want to fight? We'll listen to whoever wins." Little rascal was enraged by him. In the end, even a fight was shown. Xiao Su was a little annoyed that the situation had turned out this way and the matter between the two of them had yet to be resolved. In the end, he got hot-headed and leaned over to capture those pink lips that were chattering non-stop. He had wanted to do it the moment he got close to her. So much so that his heart was like a monkey on a horse galloping, causing the conversation between the two to reach a dead end. Chu Qingyan blinked her eyes. She was still a little confused by the situation in front of her. Her long eyelashes brushed against his face, making it a little itchy. Xiao Su let go of her hand and placed it behind her head, pressing it against himself. His eyes rippled with a faint smile. Don't clench your teeth so tightly. Chu Qingyan's face turned red. She opened her mouth to say something, but a certain someone who was ready to take action had already made her unable to say a word. Her obedience and softness made a cluster of flames gather in his eyes. His fingers gently caressed and slowly rubbed into her hair. This kiss came as suddenly as a storm, and it came fiercely. Chu Qingyan almost couldn't withstand it, but the gentle touch that came from her hair made her feel the love of the person in front of her. She couldn't help but raise her hands to wrap around his waist. This action was like an encouragement. Xiao Su's other hand supported her waist, and through the thin clothes, he gently caressed her waist. His hands moved. Although Chu Qingyan was dizzy from his kiss, her body was very sensitive right now. She grabbed his hand and said softly with a red face, "Someone will come." It was originally a light reprimand, but for some reason, it sounded coquettish. Xiao Su's throat tightened. He lowered his head and continued what he was doing before. He said absent-mindedly, "No one will come." Chu Qingyan wanted to say something, but she was once again brought into the deep space filled with thousands of stars. At both ends of the alley, Hualing and Turan were guarding the entrance. Whenever someone wanted to go in, the two of them would say in unison, "It's not safe inside, please change to another path." Because of Hualing and Turan's warnings and their strange expressions, many passers-by imagined many terrifying scenes, such as robbery and so on. Thus, for a long period of time, the alley was empty. After an unknown amount of time, Chu Qingyan walked out of the alley. She felt that her feet were weak as if she was stepping on cotton. If she wasn't supporting herself against the wall, she was afraid that she would have gone limp. The people behind her wanted to support her, but she avoided them. Xiao Su knew that she was shy after the incident, so he slowly followed behind her. After recovering a bit of strength, Chu Qingyan turned around and glared at him fiercely. Unfortunately, her eyes were glistening. Other than being delicate, they were still delicate and didn't have any lethality. It made Xiao Su's heart itch. However, he had already eaten enough of her tofu. Xiao Su felt that he should stop before going too far. Otherwise, it would be hard to eat her in the future. Yen Luo and Xiuli are still waiting for me. Meeting his gaze, her momentum weakened. Her eyes looked left and right. At this time, the intimate scene between the two of them was still in her mind. Her face became even redder. What entered his eyes was her gorgeous and red lips. Xiao Su raised his hand and gently caressed her lips. He wasn't surprised to see that her face was becoming redder and redder. Her ears were also pink and cute. He caressed her earlobe and gently rubbed it. His actions were very ambiguous, but his tone was so serious that it made people want to grit their teeth. Go back early. We'll settle today's debt at home. After he finished speaking, he withdrew his hand. He wasn't someone who couldn't grasp the importance of things, so he helped her tidy up her clothes and then retreated. Chu Qingyan glared at him. They were already like that just now, what debt was there to settle at night? Stingy person. At this time, Hualing and Turan had also slowly walked back from a distance. Chu Qingyan knew that she couldn't go out looking like this, so she stomped her feet and ran away. Xiao Su looked at her fleeing figure and rubbed his fingers. He recalled how delicate she was in the alley and the corners of his lips curled up. Master! Hualing and Turan called out at the same time. Let's go back. Xiao Su put away his emotions and said in a faint voice. Without Chu Qingyan, Xiao Su was like a cold stone. He gave her all his warmth. In front of others, he was still the noble and unapproachable king of England, Xiao Su. Only in front of Chu Qingyan would he be the Xiao Su who could laugh and get angry. Chapter 730. When Chu Qingyan arrived at the tea house, she was teased by Qing Yenluo and Hua Xiuli as expected. By the way, did your boyfriend make things difficult for you? Hua Xiuli was very curious about this because Xiao Su looked like a person who could make people tremble even with his gaze. Therefore, she wanted to know how Chu Qingyan managed to escape from his evil clutches. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but recall the intimate interaction between the two of them in the dark alley. Her face immediately turned bright red. He's not the kind of person who would bully others. Big Ice Cube rarely used violence to solve problems. Even if he didn't like people, he would just make things difficult for her and find it hard to talk about it. Although Hua Xiuli had been immersed in business for many years and liked to flirt with young girls, she was still a blank slate when it came to relationships. She thought that Chu Qingyan was too embarrassed to talk about it. She couldn't help but fear Xiao Su even more. She once again listed Xiao Su as a dangerous person. Cheng Yanluo understood what was going on. She reached out and poked the person beside her, then teased, "You're not easy to coax, are you?" Chu Qingyan agreed wholeheartedly. Just as she was about to nod, Cheng Yanluo continued, causing her to spit out a mouthful of tea. It was because Cheng Yanluo had seen through her predicament with her own eyes. "So you gave yourself to him and let him take advantage of you for so long?" Chu Qingyan couldn't refute because that was the truth. As Cheng Yanluo's voice wasn't loud, Hua Xiuli was confused and had no idea what she was talking about. She only saw that Chu Qingyan's face seemed to have been brushed with a layer of caramel, so red that it looked like blood was about to drip out. Hua Xiuli asked kindly, "Qingyan, are you having a fever? Why is your face so hot?" Chu Qingyan glared at Cheng Yanluo angrily. "I'll owe you this for now. I'll slowly get back from your ethereal in the future." After exhaling heavily, Chu Qingyan quickly pulled the two people back to the topic at hand and continued with the unfinished business today. "The matter with Miss Hua Yu has been settled. Now, we need at least 2 publicity figures. They must be dignified, elegant, and upright ladies." Chu Qingyan finished speaking and looked at Hua Xiuli. "You're more familiar with the aristocrats, so I'll leave them to you. As for the speech, as long as they agree to cooperate with us, we'll send them in advance. As long as they agree with me, they'll be free trial tested in advance." Hua Xiuli patted her chest in assurance. However, she was slightly puzzled as she said, "Qingyan, actually, I feel that your worries are a little unnecessary. Although your product has never been seen before in the market, based on my many years of experience and insight, once your product appears in the market, it will definitely attract commoners and even nobles to buy it first. This is because this thing is really too rare, too unique, and too effective. Therefore, although your ideas are not bad, I still feel that you are being too cautious." Chu Qingyan could understand her thinking, but she had her own reasons. "Xiuli, I've said this morning that I want to create a brand that's unique. As long as products are mentioned, no matter what kind of products they are, the first thing that comes to their minds is to continue the brand. That's the only way to prove that we're successful. What I want to do is not just short-term profits, but long-term brand effects. How do we drive this effect? We have to start with the aristocrats. Even if ordinary people use it, they'll feel that they're being treated like aristocrats. Not only do we have to satisfy our customers physically, but we also have to serve them psychologically. Only then can our business last." She was willing to repeat these things because she felt that the person in front of her was worthy of her trust. If the partners could work together, they would be able to exert their strength in one direction. Hua Xiuli understood immediately. The questions that she couldn't understand before were now clearly answered. She smelled the bright future that Chu Qingyan had mentioned. At the same time, she also felt that she had chosen a strong teammate. "I understand." Hua Xiuli clenched her fists. "Don't worry, I'll help you with this matter properly. Also, if you have any other matters, you can tell me at any time. I'll cooperate unconditionally." Chu Qingyan nodded in satisfaction. Because of Hua Xiuli's status, she had a deep relationship with the young ladies of the aristocratic families. Therefore, she didn't need to visit them personally. She could just leave it to Hua Xiuli. After a brief division of labor, Chu Qingyan ended the short meeting. The three of them bade farewell to each other and the meeting ended. Because Qing Yanluo had just arrived in Jiangnan, there were some things that she needed to buy. Therefore, Chu Qingyan went home first. Master, we've already moved. We're no longer living in the bank. Jin Xian drove the carriage and said to his master in the carriage. Chu Qingyan was thinking about something at that moment. When she heard that, she was pleasantly surprised. You've all moved today. If it was just me and Xining, it wouldn't be enough. Su Yi and the rest also helped us move. Jin Xian explained. Perhaps it was because he had a real home in Jiangnan, but Jin Xian's tone was less mature and more cheerful than usual. Chu Qingyan then remembered that Su Yi and the rest of the people were also supported by her. She couldn't help but sigh when she thought about how she used to be alone in Liancheng and now had a family to feed. The location of the new residence was very quiet, but it wasn't far from the downtown area. Although it didn't occupy a large area, it had everything: a garden, a stream, an arch bridge, a courtyard, and pavilions. Chu Qingyan had never worried about these things. In Jiangnan, all the buildings and scenery were better than anywhere else. Therefore, after Xining led Chu Qingyan around the residence, she returned to her study room. She heard that De Bing had specially prepared this room for her. Moreover, there was a meeting room next to the study room. He said that she could receive guests and entertain business partners there in the future. Chu Qingyan was touched by his thoughtfulness and tears welled up in her eyes. In ancient times, although it was common for women to show their faces in public, the nobles wouldn't allow their people to do business outside and show their faces in public. In their eyes, this was a loss of their reputation. Most men in ancient times were male chauvinistic. However, her De Bing had never stopped her from doing anything she wanted to do. As long as she didn't hurt herself, he wouldn't interfere. In fact, he would even help from the side. She rubbed her eyes. How lucky she was to meet someone who was so considerate of her and willing to do so much for her. Therefore, she couldn't lose her business in Jiangnan. This way, she would have enough ability to support him and become his strength when danger came in the future. In another study room, Xiao Su put down the book in his hand. Ayan is back. She's already back in the study room. Turin replied. Yes. If there's nothing, don't let the servants disturb her. I'll leave the matters in the residence to you and Xining. Yes. Chapter 731. Chu Qingyan was so busy in the study that she didn't know how much work she had to do after moving to the new house. Because Xiao Su had already arranged everything, not a single thing fell on her head. Xining was nowhere to be found. She touched the cup of water and found that it was cold. Her mouth was dry and she wanted to call someone to pour her a cup of water, but she didn't know who to call. Xining, that girl, she dropped the ball at the most crucial moment. I don't know where she went to work blindly. Chu Qingyan put down the blueprint she had just completed and slapped her face with one hand. She felt a headache coming on as she muttered to herself. Just as she was complaining and struggling to get up to reward her stomach, she suddenly heard a soft sound. She looked in the direction of the sound and saw a cup of hot tea placed on the table. She clearly remembered that the tea was already empty, so how could it still be steaming? Chu Qingyan's gaze couldn't help but follow the corner of the black robe to the side. A dark patterned carp jumped into her eyes. She remembered seeing this robe somewhere before. But she had overused her brain and it had turned into paste. So when she saw who it was, her brain couldn't function anymore. Big ice cube. Chu Qingyan was a bit incredulous. Why are you here? Just as she spoke, her eyes widened. You brought me tea. Drink it while it's hot. Xiao Su sat down on the side and didn't answer her. Chu Qingyan immediately took the tea and blinked her eyes. His Royal Highness actually brought her tea. She was too flattered. It had always been others who served him. How could there be someone who could make him personally serve her? Aren't you thirsty? Could it be that looking at me can quench your thirst? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows at her and there was a slight smile in his voice. Chu Qingyan was awakened by his words. Only then did she realize that she had been holding the teacup and had forgotten to drink it. His beauty was indeed alluring. She suddenly gulped it down. As expected, she choked. Cough cough, she hurriedly put down the cup and hammered her chest. There's a knife above the character of lust. These words were indeed sharp. Very quickly, she felt an aura approaching her. Then, someone patted her on the back to soothe her breathing. Chu Qingyan was about to say something when she heard the person behind her sigh softly. With you like this, how can I feel at ease letting you go out and explore? Chu Qingyan heard that and immediately turned around. Ignoring the fact that she was still coughing, she hurriedly raised her hand and promised, "This is just an accident." Aren't those who achieve great things not bothered by trifles? So many fallacious arguments. Xiao Su didn't intend to make her give up halfway. He just wanted to scare her. At this time, when he heard her words, he couldn't help but smile. He took the handkerchief on the side and helped her wipe the water stains on her lips. Perhaps it was because they were used to being intimate, Chu Qingyan didn't feel that there was anything wrong with his actions. As long as the big ice cube didn't regret it, he could do anything. So she peacefully enjoyed his service. The girl's lips were soaked with water. Under the light of the candlelight, they flickered with a luster, like the drops of dew on a bud in early spring. It was alluring. Xiao Su's heart moved slightly. His fingers replaced the handkerchief and traced the shape of her lips. Because the two of them were already connected, Chu Qingyan also felt the unusual atmosphere around them. Her heartbeat suddenly sped up. However, she suddenly remembered something. Big Ice Cube, don't forget that I'm not that easy to woo. Although we've been intimate, I didn't agree to be your woman. Chu Qingyan's words made Xiao Su raise his eyebrows. We'll talk about this later. Kissing first was the most important thing. She thought about it and felt that it wasn't appropriate to bring it up now. She fell silent and closed her eyes as she looked at the face that was getting closer and closer. This was supposed to be the perfect time to enjoy the plum blossoms and the flowers were blooming. However, her stomach failed to live up to her expectations and started growling. Chu Qingyan felt the breath that suddenly left her. She couldn't help but feel annoyed. She opened her eyes, raised her hands and said innocently, I didn't do it on purpose. I really haven't eaten anything for a day. In order to discuss the publicity cooperation today, she had focused all her energy on business, so she hadn't eaten anything. Now that she had finished most of her work, she relaxed and her stomach started to growl. Xiao Su shook his head and smiled. He raised his hand and flicked her forehead. Then, he saw her holding her forehead with watery eyes. He got up and said, Wait. Chu Qingyan watched in disbelief as he turned and left. Could it be that the big ice cube was going to order food for her? She felt happy as if she had been hit by a pie. Or rather, it should be said that they were mesmerized by the big ice cube's appearance when it walked down from the high and mighty altar and was tainted with the smoke and fire of a normal man and woman. Chu Qingyan hugged her head and sat on the chair, smiling contentedly. Perhaps, this was the common side of women in love. When Xiao Su walked out of the room to instruct the servants and came back, the person who was originally sitting on the chair and smiling couldn't resist the sleepiness and fell asleep on the table. Xiao Su sighed and walked to her side. When he was about to pick her up, his gaze was attracted by the messy papers on her table. Exhibition counter style, combination counter style, publicity materials. Xiao Su picked up the blueprints one by one and looked at each one. He had never seen or heard of these things before, but he was able to guess their uses from the names she had given them. He flipped to the last one. Publicity flyer. There were pictures and words on it, introducing the characteristics of various products, as well as their prices and activities. Xiao Su gathered the papers in his hand and placed them on her table. Looking at her peaceful face, it was only at this moment that he had no choice but to face the effort she had spent on this business venture. He had always known that as long as she wanted to do something, she would spend a lot more effort than others. Now that she was in business, it was still the same. It was just that he never knew that she actually had such high talent. He reached out and stroked her little head, saying softly, "It's been hard on you. If you hadn't been dragged into this internal strife, you would have been able to do what you want to do more freely." After a moment, he came back to his senses and carried her into his arms, walking towards her room. He felt that the person in his arms seemed to be lighter than a few days ago. A hint of pity appeared on his face. Then, he quickly disappeared into the darkness of the night. Entering a young girl's boudoir, Xiaosu looked at the decorations. Everything was arranged according to his arrangements. He nodded in satisfaction and turned to the bed to help her up. He helped her take off her boots and pulled the blanket over her. After doing all this, he sat down by her bed. His gaze fell on her face and never left. Chapter 732. Looking at the sleeping face on the bed, it was so peaceful and peaceful. Xiaosu's thoughts couldn't help drifting away. People who grew up in the world's most complicated and dirty place, no matter how indifferent they were to deceive each other, they would still be frightened when they were young. There were many times when they would still be woken up by nightmares when they were young, so sleeping soundly became an extravagant hope. Later on, when they killed enemies on the battlefield, their hands would be stained with blood and they would toss and turn in bed at night. But now, they had already inherited the ghost face Yama who killed people like flies. But it couldn't be considered a rumor because the him at that time had already killed people like flies on the battlefield of life and death. But now that he saw the little fellow's peaceful appearance, he was suddenly tired of those days of scheming and scheming. What he wanted the most at this moment was to let her have this kind of peaceful sleep for the rest of her life, without any worries or schemes. He slightly curled his lips and leaned over to place a light kiss on her forehead. Then he stood up and prepared to leave. At this time, Chu Qingyan slowly opened her eyes. Her misty eyes reflected his appearance and she unconsciously smiled at him. "Big ice cube, I'm hungry." When she was picked up, she had already woken up. Hua Ling had told her before that when one's martial arts reached a certain level, their vigilance would be higher. She agreed with this saying, so no matter how tired she was, she would instantly wake up. Only when she smelled that familiar scent did she allow herself to continue sleeping. That pitiful appearance and that soft voice made Xiaosu feel like his heart was being gently poked by something, making it numb. He came back to his senses and said helplessly, "Wait a minute." After saying this, he turned and left. Not long after, he came back with a plate. Chu Qingyan looked at the steaming longan and red date porridge and couldn't help licking the corner of her lips. "Big ice cube, hey." She quickly sat up and leaned against the bed, then she confidently commanded. Xiaosu was amused. "Did you eat a bear's heart and leopard's guts today?" Chu Qingyan curled her lips. "I've been running around outside all day and I even used an entire night to design the blueprints when I came back. Now I'm so tired that I can't even lift my hands. Can you bear to see me so tired? Furthermore, I'm giving you a chance to serve this lady. If you're late, I won't wait for you." In fact, when she said this, she was sweating for herself. In the past, she was able to get his care, either because she was sick and couldn't take care of herself, or because he was on a whim. Now that she took the initiative, it was rare. After saying this, she regretted it a little and felt that she was a little pretentious. Just as she was hesitating whether she should take back her words, the person sitting at the table had already taken the bowl and scooped a spoonful of soup for her. A triumphant smile appeared on Chu Qingyan's face, and she ate it without hesitation. "Big ice cube, I feel like you're becoming more and more like a normal man." Chu Qingyan ate until her cheeks were puffed up. Xiaosu paused. He narrowed his eyes and looked at her dangerously. "Are you saying that I'm not like a normal person?" After being with him for a long time, Chu Qingyan had also developed a very sharp nose. She immediately smelled danger and immediately raised her hand to explain, "I'm not scolding you. I just feel that you're more down to earth now." You're not bound by your previous identity. You're no longer someone who can only be seen from afar. This explanation, it was still acceptable. After finishing half of the big bowl of porridge, Xiao Su looked at her squinting eyes in enjoyment, and the expression on his face softened. He felt like he was raising a kitten, and a rather clingy and lazy one at that. Chu Qingyan was really starving. Not long after, the bowl of porridge was finished. Do you want more? Xiao Su saw that she had a good appetite and asked. Chu Qingyan shook her head. I'm going to sleep soon. Eating too much is not good for my stomach. You know that it's not good for your stomach, but you still neglect to eat and sleep? Xiao Su teased her. Chu Qingyan glared at him. Don't be a pot calling the kettle black. Xiao Su flicked her forehead lightly and planned to leave. But a certain lazy cat did not want to let him go so quickly. She pounced over and hugged his waist, resting her head on his lap. After doing this in one breath, she gave him a proud grin. Xiao Su shook his head and laughed. If he wanted to avoid her, even two of her would not be his match. It was just a matter of whether he was willing or not. What? Aren't you sleepy? I want to talk to you before I sleep. She rubbed against his arm and said reluctantly. It was rare to see her so reluctant, so Xiao Su simply leaned against the bed wall. His fingers rested on her hair and gently rubbed it. What do you want to talk about? Big Ice Cube, you're the one who wants to chase this lady. How can there be someone as taciturn as you? Chu Qingyan snorted. Chat. That was not his strong suit. But if they were talking about politics or military strategy, he would be able to do it easily. But he also knew that talking about these things at this time would spoil the mood. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she saw that his gaze was locked onto her body. She felt a little unnatural. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about the unfinished business just now. What? She did not understand. But when his lips fell, she understood. Unfortunately, it was too late. For Xiao Su, chatting was just moving his mouth. It was better to change the method. Anyway, different paths led to the same goal. A person's life could be many different things, but only they could make their life the way they wanted it to be. For example, right now Chu Qingyan was laying down an important cornerstone for her life. At the same time, she was also paving a broad road for her and Xiao Su's future. She had already given the design on the blueprint and the style of the flyer to Hua Xiu long ago. Hua Xiu used her connections in Jiangnan to turn everything from the higher-ups into real things. Moreover, she rushed to complete it one by one before the continuation brand went public. When Chu Qingyan checked the layout of Hibiscus Pavilion, she saw that the design of the counters was exactly the same as the one on the blueprint. She could not help but admire Hua Xiu's ability to get things done. At this moment, all the women were dressed in the same way. They all had standard smiles on their faces as they stood upright in the shop. Chu Qingyan was very satisfied with their looks, figures, and makeup. She had recruited all these women over the past few days. She had instructed Qing Yanluo to teach them how to smile and stand according to her instructions, as well as how to train them on product knowledge. After a strict selection process, they would all be able to take on the responsibility of explaining and trading the products. After the goods were delivered to the counter, the service really began. She had brought the modern concept of shopping guide to ancient times. This time, she did not use Xiao Su's manpower and material resources. Since she wanted to be independent, she would not let him interfere. Even though she knew that the things on the counter would be better done by a wood spirit, she gave up on the idea. She had been very busy these past few days, but all her efforts were worth it. Everything was ready except for the east wind. Chu Qingyan looked at the setting sun in the west with a determined expression. When the sun rose in the east tomorrow, it would be time to test the results. She was really looking forward to it. Chapter 733. The continuation series brand had not yet been released, but it had already spread like wildfire in the market. Firstly, Miss Huayu, who was famous all over the city, was a beauty that could captivate even the birds and beasts. No one knew what kind of rouge or powder she had used recently, but it actually increased her beauty to a whole new level. Many women spent a lot of money to inquire about it, only to find out that she was using the continuation series Shueishin lipstick and mascara. For a while, the streets were filled with servants and maids sent by madams and young ladies from various families to search for this brand of products. Unfortunately, they did not find anything. Later, they received a flyer on the street with the continuation series products written on it. Each of them happily grabbed the flyer and returned to their manors to report. Secondly, the young ladies from several prominent families in Jiangnan had tried the Hua family's new rouge and powder. The effect was excellent, and its reputation was widespread in the upper circle. Moreover, when they learned that the Hua family would be launching these new products in a few days, those noble ladies and young ladies had already gone to the Hua family in advance to pre-order before the new products were launched. As a result, the Hua family had received a lot of orders in the past few days. When the news spread, many onlookers also joined the ranks of pre-orders. After preparing for so long, it was finally time to see the results. Before the opening time, a large number of people were already queuing up in the hibiscus pavilion. Not only were there commoners, but there were also servants who bought for their masters. When the door opened, the crowd swarmed in. Looking down from above, it looked like a swarm of densely packed ants. However, when they saw the displays and furnishings inside, as well as the waitresses with exquisite makeup and uniform clothes, they could not help but lower their voices and lighten their footsteps. This was the situation that Chu Qingyan wanted to achieve. She wanted to create a place where people could not help but straighten their posture. This was the effect of branding. Chu Qingyan, Hua Xiuli, and Chen Yanluo stood at the door and looked at the crowd of customers who were like ants crossing the border. They were somewhat stunned. "My three masters, we are understaffed. Please think of a way." The shopkeeper squeezed out of the crowd and bitterly asked for help. They thought that the first day's effect would be good, but they did not expect it to be so good. The checkout line was very long, and they were seriously understaffed. Chu Qingyan immediately ordered, "Xiaohuan, Xining, you two go in and help." Yes. Young Xiaohuan and Xining didn't delay. They immediately lifted their skirts and squeezed in. Today, she brought the two of them out so that they could get familiar with each other as soon as possible so that they could become her right-hand men in the future. She didn't expect that they would be put to good use so soon. Seeing the two of them handling the crowd with ease, Chu Qingyan's lips curled into a gratified smile. "Qingyan, I told you that you don't have to worry. Look, just as I expected, it will be snatched up as soon as it goes public." After Hua Xiu recovered from his shock, he had a smug look on his face. He could already foresee how much profit he would get from today's sales. The prices of these new products were not low. Chen Yanluo couldn't help but chime in, "That's right. Look at how many orders they've received in the past 2 days. When I saw it yesterday, I was shocked. I have to say, Qingyan's promotion in the early stages couldn't be better. This is called gaining the upper hand with a show of strength." Chu Qingyan looked at the shop assistants that she had trained patiently explaining to the customers. A faint smile appeared on her face. It seemed that her many days of hard work had not been in vain. Agreed. Hua Xiu spared no effort in agreeing. Previously, she felt that she didn't need to spend so much effort on these early preparations because she always believed that the most important thing was the quality of the products. It wasn't until these 2 days when she received an endless stream of orders that she understood that Chu Qingyan wasn't doing all this to add flowers to a brocade. Instead, it was to find the right position to continue the brand from the beginning. It was to let it take root in Jiangnan's business and not be like duckweed. Once the storm came, it wouldn't be able to withstand the drift. On the upper floor opposite Hibiscus Pavilion, a person was leaning against the window. "Master, I didn't think that the little Gongzi's business would be so good." Huo Ling stuck his head out and said. Xiao Su looked at the cheerful smiles on the faces below and his mood was affected. Master, why aren't you going down to accompany the little Gongzi? Instead, he stood there and watched for half a day. Hua Ling silently cursed in his heart. Turan on the side rolled his eyes. This Hua Ling really didn't have good eyesight. Didn't he see that master had been staring at the little Gongzi all day? If he went down, would he still be able to openly look at the little Gongzi? His intelligence was truly worrying. No need. Xiao Su lightly said. As long as he could see her, it was fine. She was working hard in the field she liked and he was accompanying her. It was fine as long as he didn't miss out on her happiness, anger, sorrow, or joy. So, he didn't need to appear and affect her or distract her. In just a short morning, all the products on the counter were sold out. The results were gratifying and the number of customers in the store only increased. In the afternoon, there were even more people buying. Even when it was time to close at night, there were still many customers lingering in the store, unwilling to leave. Because the continuation brand's products were available for trial, many people found that their normal makeup was different after putting on makeup. They could be bright and beautiful, charming, pure, and enchanting. It simply made people go crazy with joy. Qing Yan, I really want to know. How did you train those sales assistants? Their makeup skills can be said to be experts. Hua Xiu heard the feedback in the store and couldn't help but ask the person who was calmly sipping tea. These women were originally born in a brothel, so their foundation isn't bad. In addition, with Qing Yan's teaching, they learned quickly. Chen Yanluo explained. She was the one who was in charge of the training, so she knew better than anyone else. Chu Qing Yan nodded. Although she looked happy, she was much calmer than Hua Xiu and Chen Yanluo. Ha, I can already foresee the beautiful future of earning a basin full of silver. Hua Xiu laughed so hard that her back molars couldn't be seen. Chen Yanluo couldn't help but laugh in agreement. By the way, I've been so busy these days that I forgot. Why haven't I seen Higashio Motetsu? Where has he been recently? Hua Xiu still had a conscience and didn't forget about her ally. When Chu Qingyan heard her question, she was slightly stunned. She couldn't help but recall the scene when she met him on the way back the day before yesterday. At that time, there was something wrong with his expression, but she was so busy that her feet didn't touch the ground, so she didn't notice. She only remembered it when she was on the way back. Unfortunately, he was no longer in Jiangnan at that time. He said that he had something to do at home and had to go back. It might take 10 days to half a month for him to come back. Chu Qingyan sighed softly. To be honest, she still felt a little regretful. Back then, she was able to pass Hua Xiu's test thanks to his help. Now, she wanted to let him see the results. After all, he was also one of the contributors. She didn't know what he was going home for, but looking at him, it seemed to be very important. Chapter 734. Although this fellow didn't contribute much to the launch of the new product, he's still a good-looking man. If he were here, he would definitely attract countless ladies, both married and unmarried. Cheng Yanluo lamented, as if she was watching a large amount of shiny silver flowing out of her pocket. Hua Xiu nodded seriously. Although she didn't like Higashio Motetsu's beauty, she had to admit that he was handsome on the outside and witty on the inside. If he were in the store, he would be a rare fortune cat. Seeing that both of them were obsessed with money, Chu Qingyan sighed helplessly. At this moment, Cheng Yanluo turned to face Chu Qingyan with a hint of relief in her eyes. But it's good that Higashio Motetsu isn't here. Otherwise, with that vinegar jar of yours, you might have a hard time. Chu Qingyan choked. When did her big ice block become famous for his jealousy? He's not as exaggerated as you say. Don't talk nonsense. Cheng Yanluo approached her suspiciously. Are you sure? Didn't he settle the score with you when he came to Ming Man restaurant to catch you last time? Cheng Yanluo continued to ask. Chu Qingyan immediately shook her head. No. Cheng Yenluo clicked her tongue and turned her head to whisper to Hua Xiu. Seeing that Yenluo didn't continue to ask, Chu Qingyan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She had lied to Yenluo just now. Although her big ice block didn't openly settle the score with her these days, as long as she was in the house, she had to stay within his sight. Moreover, every time she looked up, she would meet his thoughtful expression. She felt that he was plotting something. This was simply more frightening than punishing her. However, she couldn't help but blush when he caught her in a deep conversation every day. They were in a relationship, but they had to play kissing games with each other every day. She really didn't know how he could be so energetic. After a while, Yang Xiaohuan and Xining returned with today's account book. She casually flipped it open in her sleeve and was shocked by the record inside. My God, the items sold today are more than the total of the items sold in my store in the past 10 days. What's more, your continuation products have boosted the sales of the original products in my store. It's double the usual sales. Qing Yan, you're my god of fortune. Cheng Yenluo also took her account and looked at it carefully. Even if she didn't know how to do accounts, she could still understand the totals at the end. Her face was full of shock and joy. I feel like I'm going to be rich. However, Chu Qingyan raised his hand and stopped the two of them from talking. His gaze was serious as he said with a smile, it's just the results of a day's work. You guys are too agitated. You're the only one who can sit still. Hua Xiuli and Cheng Yenluo both rolled their eyes at her. Chu Qingyan shook her head and smiled. Qingyan, are we going to do a lot of publicity next? Who knows, we might even break the record for today's sales. Hua Xiuli suggested. However, the moment he finished speaking, Chu Qingyan immediately denied it. Although the results of the first day are gratifying, we still have to fight a battle. The scientific name for this battle is hunger marketing. What's hunger marketing? Every time Chu Qingyan said a word, she was puzzled. However, she could also learn a lot from it. Hence, Hua Xiuli immediately moved closer to her like a curious child. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. Then, she explained to the two of them, hunger marketing refers to the fact that there is a sufficient supply of goods, but it creates the impression that the goods are in short supply to the customers. If they don't purchase them early, they might not be able to buy them. After all, the rarer something is, the more valuable it is. What you can't get is the best. Fighting to get what you want will give you a great sense of satisfaction. This will far exceed the value of the goods. In this way, the customers will recognize our products more. Seeing that the two of them understood, Chu Qingyan continued, however, our products aren't considered sufficient. If we don't supply them in time, they can only last for half a month at most. So, why don't we limit our supply every day? It's also a way to promote our products. This way, we'll be able to maintain the supply for at least a month. During this time, we'll be able to replenish our supplies. Cheng Yenluo and Hua Xiuli nodded in agreement. They were so overwhelmed by the joy of success that they forgot about their current situation. Chu Qingyan was neither arrogant nor discouraged by her victory. She was not complacent because of a little bit of success. Moreover, she was able to maintain a clear mind. The two of them admired her very much. She was clearly much younger than them, but her methods and boldness far exceeded theirs. It really made them blush with shame. Hence, Chu Qingyan gave a series of instructions to reduce the daily supply. She also got someone to make a small transparent board with a notice written in bright colors. It was easy for the customers to see at a glance. It was also eye-catching, new, and beautiful. After a busy day, everyone set out on their way back. Yenluo, this time, we'll return to Lian City together. We'll tidy up the flower garden and check on the situation of the base. Chu Qingyan put her hands behind her back and spoke in a businesslike manner. Okay, we'll listen to you. Cheng Yenluo expressed that she had no objections. Upon hearing this, Chu Qingyan smiled slyly. You'll really listen to me? Then, should I call Ethereal along? Cheng Yenlua's breath caught and she glared at her. You really have to rub salt into my wound. Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders and said innocently, haven't the two of you been minding your own business and living in harmony recently? So, I'm wondering if you've already given up on the feud of more than 10 years and plan to coexist peacefully without interfering in each other's lives. If so, why do you still mind? Cheng Yenluo was silent. It was not that she agreed with Yan Zhika's words, but because recently, Murongju's attitude toward her was really not as warm as before. It could be said that he was avoiding her. Every time she thought of this, she felt uncomfortable. She was not a flood or a beast. Why would he avoid her whenever he saw her? As if she had seen through Yenlua's thoughts, Chu Qingyan snickered secretly. However, she still looked confused. Anyway, since you've already decided to stay away from each other for the rest of your lives, why don't you just let each other go and get married in the future and have nothing to do with each other? Isn't Ethereal going to get married and have children in the future? Do you know how much it costs to get married? Since he's Big Ice Cube's favorite subordinate, I'll help him and let him join us. He can also earn some money to get married. With every sentence she said, Chu Qingyan saw her face turn paler and paler. She felt a little happy that her scheme had succeeded. After saying this, she swaggered into the house, leaving Cheng Yenluo alone outside the door. Once they entered the courtyard, Chu Qingyan saw the person standing under the moonlight. She rushed over and hugged his waist from behind as she spoke without thinking. Big Ice Cube, I'll take care of you in the future. Chapter 735. Big Ice Cube, I'll take care of you in the future. Chu Qingyan pressed her face against his back and smiled brilliantly. Unfortunately, she didn't see the person she was hugging and her face froze. Is your skin itchy again? He didn't care about her for a few days and she was already trying to take advantage of him. Chu Qingyan didn't care how cold his tone was. That was only to other people. Her family's Big Ice Cube only knew how to talk to her and had never really done anything to her. It was also because he doted on her that Chu Qingyan dared to speak so bluntly. I didn't say anything wrong. Wait until I earn big money, then I can take care of you. After Chu Qingyan said this, she quickly squatted down and avoided his outstretched hand. Then she slid close to his body and smiled as she reached out her hand again and hugged him from the front. Xiao Su felt that he had been seen through by this little fellow. Looking at her smug face, he really didn't know if he should be soft-hearted. It was rare for her to be so lovey-dovey. Xiao Su didn't care about her rude words and took a step back. The person hugging him also took a step forward, just like a sloth hanging on his body. Xiao Su pursed his lips and smiled. Then he leaned against the tree trunk and allowed the person on top of him to rub against him. You've just opened for business today and you've already lost your sense of measure. Although Xiao Su was teasing her, there was a rare touch of seriousness in his words. How could Chu Qingyan not know that he was taking the opportunity to lecture her? She pursed her lips and said, I'm sharing my joy with you. I'm serious outside. If you don't appreciate it, so be it. After saying this, she let go of her hand and planned to turn around and leave. But before she could take 2 steps, she was pulled back by the person behind her. Her lips curled up slightly, but she didn't dare to show it too obviously. Stop fooling around. His reprimanding tone was full of pampering. Xiao Su held her tightly in his arms, unwilling to let her leave at this time. Chu Qingyan still wanted to say a few more words to him, but she gave up after thinking about it. With the big iceberg's temperament, it was already not easy for him to tolerate someone throwing a tantrum in front of him. She should know her place. In addition, she had been so busy recently that she rarely had time to be alone with him, so she relaxed her body and leaned against him. The bank's deficit has been replenished these few days, Xiao Su said lightly. Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. Shi Qing and Li Buqing had plotted against her and embezzled quite a bit of the money. In the future, it would all fall into the hands of the mastermind. She did not expect to be able to get it back. Just as she was thinking, the person in front of her continued. I know you don't want to take the bank's money for free, but you don't have to worry too much about the bank's operating situation. The Su family bank has been operating for more than 10 years, so it has its own value and way of surviving. Chu Qingyan listened for a long time and finally understood. Big iceberg, you mean that the bank doesn't lack money, so you don't want me to be frugal? As soon as she finished speaking, he knocked her head mercilessly. It hurts. I didn't ask you to be a spendthrift. Xiao Su pressed her head into his arms and shook his head helplessly. I know. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. She thought it was like in Korean dramas, where the male lead waved his hand and the money was all given to her as pocket money. It turned out that dreams were very rich, but reality was very harsh. The two of them stood there quietly for a while. Chu Qingyan suddenly remembered that she had been busy with her own matters and hadn't paid attention to her big iceberg. Nothing happened in the capital recently, right? Xiao Su expressed his disdain towards her sudden discovery of her conscience. Fourth Imperial brother has already reached the border. Imperial mother hasn't sent any more letters, so she probably stopped. He casually picked out two things to talk about. When Chu Qingyan heard Xiao Ran's name, she still felt a bit empty. Then she said, back then, he almost poisoned me to death with a plate of pastries. I still remember that little tyrant look. Now that he's grown up and can start his career, I suddenly feel that time is unforgiving. Just as she finished speaking, she received another chestnut on her head. Chu Qingyan blinked her watery eyes and rubbed her red forehead as she glared at him. So sad at such a young age. Xiao Su ignored her rolling eyes and bluntly refuted her words. Che, in this life, one can close one eye and pass away. Once one closes one's eyes, one dies. So time waits for no one. It passes in the blink of an eye and I don't even have time to sigh. Chu Qingyan muttered a few words. Then she changed the topic to Xiao Ran. Then how is the battle on the front line? Even though she didn't want to know about these things, but with the situation they were in, she had to participate in the planning. Before Xiao Ran arrived, they had already lost 2 cities. Xiao Su's voice was emotionless. Even Chu Qingyan, who was in front of him, could not tell what he was feeling. Then the situation is very urgent. I don't know if Xiao Ran can get the cities back. Chu Qingyan sighed softly. She didn't have much patriotic feelings towards Sichuan, but it was still the country she lived in. Even though they didn't share the same glory, they would share the same loss. Not hearing the big iceberg's reply, Chu Qingyan thought that maybe he didn't know either. Who could be sure about this kind of thing? Then do you know who's leading the troops in Nansang? Chu Qingyan was still a little curious about Nansang. I heard it's the prince of Nansang, Pang Huang. Xiao Su frowned at the mention of the man he'd met once. According to the information he'd gathered, this person was vicious and merciless. He was unconventional and wasn't easy to deal with. Hearing this name, Chu Qingyan also remembered their fight that day. She didn't have a good impression of this person. I didn't expect it to be him. The prince of Nansang is very crafty. I hope Xiao Ran won't fall in his hands. You're shooting your mouth off again. Xiao Su once again dropped a chestnut on her head. Chu Qingyan grimaced in pain. She jumped out of his embrace and said fiercely, is this how you treat your girlfriend? Always flicking other people's heads. Don't you know what it means to have tender feelings for the fairer sex? I'm not your pet and I'm definitely not your child. You better have a proper attitude for this lady. Otherwise, people will think that I have an older brother or an elder. Xiao Su was left speechless by her string of words. Just as he was about to put on a fierce expression, he was once again checkmated by her. Look, you're teaching people a lesson again. How are you acting like a boyfriend at all? Your performance these past few days, I'll give you a bad review. Chu Qingyan angrily stomped her feet. After saying this, she used her qinggong and angrily ran away. Xiao Su looked at his empty hands and then looked in the direction that a certain person ran off in. He suddenly felt a dull pain in his temples. At this time, a weak voice sounded out. "Master, are you all right?" Xiao Su turned around and gave a cold look. This aura was enough to make a person's legs go soft. Huo Ling said in a trembling voice, "Sir Lin just sent someone to deliver a letter." Seeing his master take the letter, Huo Ling wiped the sweat off his forehead. He didn't want to provoke his master at this time, so why was he so unlucky? Chapter 736. For Feng Yi to send him a letter at this time, it must be something important. Xiao Su opened the letter as soon as he received it. After quickly skimming through the words, he couldn't help but pinch the paper in his hand. He didn't expect Imperial concubine Lu's family to stretch their hands so far. Not only were they involved in the salt smuggling, they even wanted to get their hands on the armory. Draw up an invitation later. This prince needs to go to the Lin Manor tomorrow. When Xiao Su opened his fingers, the letter had already turned to ashes in his hand. Although he didn't interfere with the affairs of the imperial court, he wouldn't allow these people to disturb the peace of the Sichuan. Since they had the courage of a bear and leopard, they should be prepared to be exposed. Yes. Huo Ling agreed. After a moment, Xiao Su asked, "What has Ethereal been doing these days?" Replying to Master, after Ethereal returned, he studied a prescription in his pharmacy. In recent days, the seasons have changed, and his subordinates have caught a cold. He's treating them. Everything is normal, and you can't tell that he's in a bad mood. Moreover, I haven't seen him look for Miss Cheng recently. It seems that he's really let go of Miss Cheng. Huo Ling knew what his master wanted to ask, so he explained tirelessly. Oh. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. He obviously didn't believe it. When Huo Ling saw his master's expression, he couldn't help but chuckle. Actually, this subordinate doesn't believe it either. I heard that before Huo Ling's abnormal behavior, the young princess Consort had a secret talk with him for an entire afternoon. I don't know what they talked about, but after that, Ethereal became like this. Presumably, the little fellow couldn't stand it and couldn't help but give Ethereal some advice. However, he didn't know what it was. Xiao Su was also worried about this subordinate of his who had followed him for so many years. Back then, he didn't know about the relationship between Ethereal and Qingyan Luo. But even if he knew, he wouldn't interfere. However, he couldn't let Ethereal stay in the medical hall because Ethereal had a more important mission. He wouldn't feel guilty about Qingyan Luo, but he couldn't bear to see his subordinate suffer so much because of a woman. If it was before, he would not understand this kind of love entanglement, but since he and the little fellow confessed their feelings, he could also understand this kind of love that could not be obtained, so he also had the heart to hope that the two of them would reconcile. Seeing his master not speaking, Huo Ling couldn't help but ask curiously, "Just now, little young master seemed to be a little unhappy. Did something happen?" He had just arrived and brushed shoulders with the angry young master. When he arrived, he saw that his master's expression was not right, so he first talked about business. Now that he saw that his master's expression had eased, he fearlessly asked. Xiao Su didn't answer. After thinking for a moment, he said, "How's the selection of people a while ago?" Huo Ling didn't know why his master suddenly brought up those tacticians who sought refuge, but he still answered honestly, "Their backgrounds have been investigated and they have also been tested. About 8 people have been retained." After a moment of silence, Xiao Su spoke again, "This prince wants to give them a question to test them." Huo Ling immediately became spirited and quickly nodded. However, when he came out of the study, Huo Ling's feet were a little unsteady. He looked at the test question in his hand and suddenly shed a tear of sympathy for those tacticians who were eager to get into the good books of his master. On the paper was written, "Talk about how to get along with your wife." Huo Ling scratched his head. How was he supposed to explain his master's profound intentions to those people? So troublesome. However, when the tacticians far away in Lian City received this question, they didn't think that His Royal Highness was asking for advice on how to court his wife. Instead, the question that His Highness Prince Ing came up with seemed ordinary, but in fact, it was very profound. Was His Highness using this small question to test their understanding of how to govern a country by cultivating one's body and unifying one's family? As the saying goes, if you don't sweep a house, how can you sweep the world? Country, and family were also very important. So was this extending from managing a family to managing a country? It really was profound, As expected of His Royal Highness, he could actually think of such a question. They had to think carefully before writing. If Chu Qingyan knew about this, she would definitely have a flock of crows flying over her head. After being tired for several days, Chu Qingyan was finally able to relax with the success of the product launch. After taking a beautiful bath, she fell asleep as soon as she laid down, completely forgetting about Xiao Su's 3 flicks to the back of her mind. The next morning, Chu Qingyan woke up at the same time as usual. She washed up and did her morning exercise in the yard before going to the side room to see the proud gerfalcon. When she walked in, she saw Little Trouble and the other 2 children squatting in front of the gerfalcon. They were staring at each other, but the gerfalcon didn't seem to care about the 3 little ones. Little Trouble was lying on the side, occasionally looking at the 3 little ones and not giving the gerfalcon any face. At this moment, Chu Qingyan came in. The 3 little ones turned their gazes and ran towards her, jumping around her feet. Chu Qingyan realized that these little ones had gained quite a bit of weight in just a few days. It seemed like the food in the residence was too good. She wondered if she should bring them out for a walk. After all, the more they ate, the fatter they would get, and it would be inconvenient for them to exercise. She didn't expect them to catch a few mice, but they should at least take on the responsibility of looking after the house. Chu Qingyan picked up 2 of them. They were really heavy. She walked in front of the gerfalcon and examined its injuries. Jean Xian said that the gerfalcon still needed to rest for half a month because of its serious injuries. Chu Qingyan said to the dispirited gerfalcon, "Little Hai, don't feel wronged. When you've recovered, I'll let you go. Otherwise, I won't be able to rest assured if you leave now." She didn't know if the gerfalcon understood her, but she would come over and chat with it when she had time. To be honest, she quite liked the gerfalcon. Whether it was its appearance or its proud temperament, it suited her temperament, although the gerfalcon always ignored her. After chatting for a while, Chu Qingyan put down the 2 little ones and let Little Trouble play with them. Since the gerfalcon was quite bored, it was better to let these lively little ones relieve its boredom. Chu Qingyan patted the white fur off her body and went out. Today, she had to go to Hibiscus Pavilion to take care of things. Ah, isn't that an eagle? Yes, your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. It's an eagle. I don't know what's going on recently, but there are so many eagles hovering in the sky. It's so scary. I don't know what's going on, but I feel scared when I see those eagles. When I go back, tell the children not to run around if there's nothing important. Otherwise, what if they're taken away by the eagles? The discussion continued. Sitting in the carriage, Chu Qingyan closed her eyes to rest. The streets were bustling with noise, and she wasn't in the mood to listen, so she didn't hear the discussions outside. Jean Xian drove the carriage and paid close attention to both sides, so he didn't pay attention to the words of the passers-by. The carriage slowly made its way to Hibiscus Pavilion. When Chu Qingyan arrived at Hibiscus Pavilion, someone was standing guard in an alley not far away. When he saw her appear, he immediately turned to report to his master. Chapter 737. You're so early today. Hua Xiuli greeted her with a smile as soon as she got out of the car. Looking at the refreshed Hua Xiuli, Chu Qingyan was also influenced by her. She smiled and said, "The early bird gets the worm. But the early worm gets eaten by the bird." Hua Xiuli replied. Chu Qingyan shook her head and said, that depends on what you want to do. They walked side by side into Hibiscus Pavilion. Hua Xiuli said, everything has been done according to your instructions. Today, the limited supply will start on a first-come first-served basis. The price is still the same as before. The original price will be sold in 3 days. Chu Qingyan nodded and her eyes fell on the shop assistants. These girls were originally very ordinary, but they were down-to-earth and hard-working. After going through Yenlua's etiquette and makeup training, they seemed to have been reborn, as if they had changed into another person. Whether it was their behavior, clothes, or makeup, they were simply impeccable. In the past, if they were thrown into a crowd, they would be drowned out. Now, even among beautiful women, they could fight for a place. This huge contrast was, in fact, one of her publicity strategies. What was more persuasive than experiencing it yourself? The business on the second day was even better than the first. Good things would set off an irresistible trend as long as they were passed on from mouth to mouth. The onlookers couldn't help but rush into the store when they saw that the customers had such a good trial effect. Chu Qingyan, fortunately, you've made adjustments. Otherwise, how could our products withstand the crazy rush of these people? Hua Xiuli was squeezed out by the surging crowd. At this time, she patted her chest and said with lingering fear. Just now, there were a few people who almost fought over the goods. Chu Qingyan looked at the increasing number of customers and frowned slightly. Xiuli, later we'll hire a few strong women to maintain order in the shop. Hearing this, Hua Xiuli pondered for a while and suddenly understood why she invited an old woman instead of a man. It was because the customers who came to buy were basically delicate customers. If a man offended them, it would have a negative impact on the shop. She didn't say anything more and nodded. She kept this matter in mind. By the way, why didn't Yenluo come with you today? Hua Xiu suddenly remembered something after she was so busy that she felt dizzy. She's been researching the recipe I gave her recently. If she's successful, we'll have a few more types of products. Since Hua Xiu was her business partner, she didn't hide anything. Hua Xiuli nodded in surprise. I'm not trying to boast, but these continuation products of yours are really good stuff. I saw that after my aunts used them, they became a few years younger. Their mentality also improved a lot. They no longer have to find matchmakers for me when they have nothing to do. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but be amused by Hua Xiu's words. There are no ugly women in this world, only lazy women. As long as you take care of yourself, it may be difficult to stay young forever, but it's still possible to delay aging, brighten your skin, and bring out your most beautiful side. Hua Xiu's eyes widened. It feels like you're advertising your product. You're so serious and official. Ever since Hua Xiuli had stayed with Chu Qingyan for a long time, she was able to use the new vocabulary she had learned from her with ease. Chu Qingyan shrugged and smiled. Isn't that the case? Hua Xiuli couldn't refute because what Chu Qingyan said was indeed the truth. Let's not talk about anything else. Just by using those products, she felt like she was about to fall in love with herself. The two of them sat in the inner room. With Yang Xiaohuan and Xining helping them in front, they felt relieved. In 2 days, I'll have to make a trip back to Lian City to build the flower base so that we can use the raw materials in the future. Chu Qingyan sipped her tea and talked about the next step of the plan. Yes, even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. Our products are selling so well. If we don't follow up, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to continue. Hua Xiuli nodded and then sighed. If it wasn't for my father throwing all the family business to me, I'd also want to go with you. Unfortunately, I'm tied up with many things. Chu Qingyan put down her teacup and sized up the 16 or 17-year-old girl in front of her. Although it was difficult to tell her gender because she was dressed in men's clothing, and people who didn't know would easily be deceived by her romantic and elegant appearance, she was a genuine beautiful girl. Girls of this age should be embroidering at home, painting, or taking care of their husbands and children at home. Girls like her who were running around outside and carrying the family business were few and far between. Although Hua Xiaoli always had a carefree look, Chu Qingyan knew how busy she was. Apart from Hibiscus Pavilion, there were more than 10 shops, rice stores, pawn shops, restaurants, and so on. This time, she was able to take out so much time and energy to continue the product, which made Chu Qingyan feel very touched. At this time, Chu Qingyan blinked and had a little scheme in her heart. Hua Xiaoli, do you have someone you like? Hearing this, Hua Xiaoli, who was still talking cheerfully, immediately became alert. Why are you asking this? Don't tell me you want to be a part-time matchmaker. Chu Qingyan laughed in spite of herself. I'm just asking, don't be so sensitive. Besides, men should get married when they're of age, and women should get married when they're of age. Isn't that very normal? Hua Xiaoli snorted coldly. I knew you didn't have good intentions. Don't put your ideas on me. I, Hua Xiaoli, don't want to depend on a man to live. I'd rather not get married for the rest of my life. Chu Qingyan spread her hands. Alright, I originally wanted to say that if I see a handsome man who is compatible with you along the way, I'll be your matchmaker. But after hearing what you said, I'll just take it that I'm worrying for nothing. Hua Xiaoli rolled her eyes. A handsome man, ah. That's something I can consider. These words made Chu Qingyan call her a love-struck fool. But since she had already spoken, Chu Qingyan really began to look out for Hua Xiaoli. Because the product was limited in quantity, it was basically sold out before afternoon. Hua Xiaoli had already been called away because of other shops, so after Chu Qingyan ordered her subordinates to prepare the goods, she planned to go back. She left Yang Xiaowan to make the follow-up arrangements while she brought Xining and Jin Xian out of Hibiscus Pavilion. Just as they were about to board the carriage, a manservant ran over. Young Master Chu, my young master invites you. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan stopped what she was doing and turned to look at the manservant. She felt that this person was somewhat familiar, but she remembered that she had a small argument with Big Ice Cube last night. At this moment, she was anxious to go back and cultivate a good relationship with him. But halfway through, this person came out of nowhere, so she declined without thinking. There's an emergency at home. Next time. After saying that, Chu Qingyan was about to put down the curtain, but she didn't expect the manservant to say in a strange tone, then don't blame us for being unreasonable. As soon as he finished speaking, dozens of thugs immediately rushed up and surrounded the carriage. Chapter 738. When Chu Qingyan saw this, a light flashed through her mind. She suddenly remembered who that manservant was. She raised her hand, indicating for Xiao Lai to not move in the dark. Then, she turned to look at the manservant with his chin raised high. She smiled faintly and said, there is no need to use such a big formation. This young master will just follow you. Jin Xin had just touched the weapon at his waist when he put it down. He jumped off the carriage and followed closely behind his master with Xi Ning, his expression cautious. That manservant looked at Chu Qingyan and her servant. Seeing that they were tactful, he waved his hand to dismiss the thugs and returned to his respectful appearance. Young Master Chu, please follow this servant. Chu Qingyan nodded and followed behind him. They walked straight ahead and turned a corner, entering a magnificent courtyard. Chu Qingyan thought that there were not many people who could brazenly kidnap people in front of other people's shops. So when she saw the person sitting on the main seat, she was not surprised at all. Second young Master Chen, long time no see. Chu Qingyan stepped through the doorway and greeted him. Chen Mingyi stood up to welcome her. Young Master Chu, the last time we parted, it was more than half a month. Every time I wanted to ask you out, I couldn't find you. Until today, this one sent someone to wait for you at Hibiscus Pavilion to invite you over. It's really not easy to see you. After exchanging pleasantries, Chu Qingyan did not give him a chance to get to the main topic. Instead, she pulled him to chat about this courtyard. On the way here, I saw a lot of orchids in the courtyard. It seems that second young Master Chen is also a flower lover. This one doesn't have many hobbies, but I like to plant some flowers and plants. It's a pity that these orchids are precious and can't be grown. It's really a headache. Chen Mingyi always wanted to talk business with her, but he saw that she kept talking about other things. Although he was anxious, he knew that this was a good chance to win her over. But he was not good at planting flowers and plants, so he changed the topic. These flowers and plants are the responsibility of this courtyard's housekeeper. If young Master Chu likes them, this young master will have someone send a few pots to your residence. Today, I invited young Master Chu here to discuss something important. You want to get straight to the point so soon? Chu Qingyan took a sip of tea and said with a smile, I'd love to hear the details. These past 2 days, the city has been crazily talking about the products of the continuation brand. This young master heard that these products were all made by young Master Chu. Is that true? Although Chen Mingyi was only 16 or 17 years old, he couldn't help but put on airs in front of Chu Qingyan, who was younger than him. He had always been proud and arrogant, and couldn't tolerate people younger than him winning over others. Hearing his impolite tone, Chu Qingyan smiled and didn't want to stoop to his level. It's true. Chen Mingyi narrowed his eyes. The Hua family's main focus is on rice and wine. They don't touch much on clothing and cosmetics. In terms of business, they can't compare to our Chen family. Our Chen family has a century-old name. Our ancestors relied on this to become rich. Even the imperial palace's first choice is our Chen family. Second young Master Chen's meaning is? Chu Qingyan pretended not to understand and asked. I previously invited young Master Chu to work together, but young Master Chu declined. Now, I still want to mention this matter. Young Master Chu has products that women in Jiangnan scramble for, and our Chen family has more formal and extensive channels. If we work together, we will be invincible. This is the way of the king. Just like marriage, we also pay attention to matching families. I feel that the Hua family is not a good match. Even if Hibiscus Pavilion's sales were higher than Fragrant Powder Pavilion's, it was because young Master Chu helped behind the scenes. Otherwise, how could the Hua family's rouge and cosmetics business win over our Chen family? Young Master Chu, you should reconsider, Chen Mingyi said vehemently. He was afraid that Chu Qingyan, who had just arrived in Jiangnan, didn't understand the difference between the two families. He had investigated her background long ago. She had no business experience, and her background was a blank. Generally, there were only 2 possibilities when one's background couldn't be investigated. One was that her family's background was too large and could be concealed by others. The other was that she was so innocent that there was nothing to investigate. However, Chen Mingyi felt that this person belonged to the second type. After all, there were only a few people who came and went by her side. It couldn't be said that she came from a large family. Therefore, Chen Mingyi's tone wasn't tactful or respectful. It was as if he was giving her face by being willing to talk about cooperation in person. Chu Qingyan smiled faintly and said, Second young Master Chen's words are quite reasonable. Chen Mingyi thought that she was moved, and a smug expression appeared on his face. Since young Master Chu also agrees with this young master's words, why don't we talk about cooperation? How much is the Hua family willing to give you? Our Chen family will add 10%. This was indeed a great temptation, but Chu Qingyan shook her head. Although second young Master Chen's words are very reasonable, this one has already reached an agreement with young Master Hua's family. This one isn't the kind of person who goes back on his words. Therefore, I'm afraid that I can only disappoint second young Master Chen's good intentions. Although he had been in the business world for a few years and had already learned the skill of observing people's expressions, and used it to perfection, Chen Mingyi still couldn't see through the person in front of him. He originally thought that the conditions he threw out were tempting enough, but he didn't expect her to reject him. This made him very angry. Adding on the fiasco of Fragrant Powder Pavilion, he had long been holding his breath. If it wasn't for this person having a bit of ability and being valued by his big brother, and him taking on this task, he would have already beaten up this person who didn't know what was good for her. Chen Mingyi, in this Jiangnan, wherever he went, he would be fawned upon and flattered by people. How could he be bullied again? This young master feels that young Master Chu hasn't thought through the benefits involved. How about young Master Chu temporarily stay here? Doesn't young Master Chu like the orchids in this courtyard? This young master will have the housekeeper bring a few servants over to discuss with young Master Chu how to cultivate orchids. How about it? Chen Mingyi said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Chu Qingyan heard this and looked at the young man who was about the same age as Hua Xiu. She raised her eyebrows. Second young Master Chen, even if the deal is not done, there is still benevolence. Are you planning to put this one under house arrest? People walk to higher places and water flows to lower places. This young master feels that young Master Chu can't see the situation clearly. Why don't you stay and think about it? This young master has good intentions. Chen Mingyi didn't care about her exposing him and admitted with a smile. Chu Qingyan smiled faintly. It seemed like this person thought that she had no one to rely on in Jiangnan. That was why he had stopped her in broad daylight and even said that she was under house arrest so openly. What if I say no? That's not up to you. Chen Mingyi dropped his pretense of kindness and sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, the hired thugs from before immediately rushed in. Jin Xian also held his sword and stood in front of his master. Chu Qingyan, do you think that one of your guards can stop this young master's men? Chen Mingyi laughed at her for overestimating her own strength. Chu Qingyan shrugged. I think that these people of yours aren't enough to fill the gaps between my Jin Xian's teeth. She didn't think that this person would be so arrogant. At this moment, a gentle voice sounded. Wait. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.